United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we did move up the public input farther up on the agenda, so people could speak and not have to wait through half the meeting. Just got a couple things to go through first. Just need a motion to approve minutes from June 17th, July 6th, July 22nd, August 2nd, and August 5th, 2021. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Is anyone here for the district hearing on the safety plan, the district-wide safety plan? Is anybody here for that? That's not related to COVID protocols. Okay. What is related to COVID protocols? Mrs. Squire is going to speak about the opening protocols for the school district.
So, I think everybody here will agree that last year the school district did a phenomenal job working our way through the pandemic, keeping our kids, families safe and staff safe throughout the year. You know, and again, it's a reflection of everybody in our school community, following best practices when it came to health and safe during the pandemic. Here we are again, ready to start school year in a couple of weeks, and we're still facing many of the same risks that we were facing last year at this time. In that regard. And again, as we start the new school year, our first goal is to simply bring back all students into in-person learning for this school year. So parents receive a message from the school tomorrow. It's going to state that as well. We are expecting all kids to be here, in person for the year. And we also know that the spread of the Delta variant, it's complicated this a little bit. We thought we were looking good here in May and June, and now we have the Delta variant. And all you have to do is look what's going on to our friends in the South and what's happening since they opened up schools the last couple of weeks. And we've seen tens of thousands of students and staff now quarantined or in isolation down south in a lot of those schools for that. So we know, the opening of school should be a time of positive emotions and positive nervousness for our kids and everybody coming back to school for the new year. But we know with this pandemic and all that, this just added another layer of all the anxiety, et cetera, on that. Throughout last year and going into this year, the CDC we recommend a layered approach to mitigation strategies for our school. And many of those guidelines are the same as last year. That we had last year. So not really a lot has changed in the sense of what we think we should be doing for the upcoming school year. And I think we were pretty successful with that. We had very limited days off, if you will, because of quarantine. As the school community and school district as a whole, considering we had kids here in person every day, unlike most of our neighbors, it was some type of hybrid model where kids were in and out and such in that regard. Right? And some of those mitigation strategies included wearing face masks last year, trying to keep 6 feet or 3 feet away from everybody, covering our mouths and such when we coughed and sneezed. It's everything our mothers taught us when we were younger. Staying home when we were sick, not sending our kids to school when they weren't feeling good. Our nurses did say anecdotally there was a lot less flu and some of those winter sicknesses that kids get because of what we were doing. Our custodial staff and teachers did a great job of disinfecting and cleaning their classrooms and learning spaces throughout the year and throughout the day each year to again reduce the transmission. And again, we implemented all those strategies last year with much success. And so throughout last year and going into this year, throughout this pandemic, we followed the guidance from our state, local, and federal authorities. That's their job, provide that guidance, and we continue to look for updates. We continue to meet collaboratively with our colleagues across our region and county, working together with the county department of health, et cetera, to figure out what's going to be the best way to open in a couple weeks for that. And so even though the New York State Department of Health as of today, has not issued any guidance, we're still having to come up with our own plan, as long as we have 700 other school districts in New York State for that. And we are using the CDC guidance and the Academy of Pediatricians guidance, because they're the experts. They're the MDs that we need for that. And
They're recommending. It's
and it's the
recommended.
right, that's their guidance. That's their guidance, right? It's the highest standard of care that we have access to at this point. Right, and so I think it's important that we continue to follow that guidance that's got us here today safely for the most part, and use data and science, et cetera, to make those decisions, and also always remain flexible, because we don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, when school gets. So our plans are adaptive, it's flexible. We will be ready. We have to go remote. Let's say, for instance, for some reason, we will be prepared to do that as a school district. As we go forward. We also, I think, want to strongly encourage everybody to be vaccinated. Our kids who are allowed to be vaccinated, who are old enough to be vaccinated, we want to encourage that, because that has been shown with a lot of data to be most effective to reduce any negative impacts from the different variants of the COVID. So we certainly encourage all of our staff and students who are eligible to be vaccinated for that. And so again, this is going to be a school community effort to keep us open in the fall, for the things we just mentioned for that. And so it's incumbent on all of us, to do our part. And I think how we respond, not only individually, but also collectively, will determine whether we're open every day or we find ourselves sending kids and staff home for different reasons, quarantine, et cetera. So just wanted to kind of do that as an overview. And so we've met, this district-wide safety team has met on a couple of occasions to take all that guidance that we've received and to come up with an open plan for the upcoming school year for that. And again, this is a draft at this point, and we're still working out some more minutiae questions in it. All right, but generally speaking, I just got to sit down for a second. One second, please. All right, so our plan is being presented tonight. We'll just start with math, because that's what most people are interested in. All right, and so there's other pieces to this besides math, so it's actually some indulgence in the whole thing here. All right, right now we are recommending that all students wear masks if they're on a school bus. All right, so, because that's actually all public transportation are required to wear a mask anyways, and that's school buses. So we expect all of our students to wear masks on school buses. If they do that, and we're going to expect all staff and students to wear masks in our schools and corridors and all common areas. Then once they're in their classrooms, once they're 6 feet apart, they can take their mask off at that point. Once everybody's settled in that regard. So very similar to what we were doing last year in the grand scheme of things. So we want everybody to be wearing, everybody vaccinated or unvaccinated, wear their masks in our corridors, common areas. When they're in the classrooms, they can. Then, once the teachers got everybody settled, they can remove their mask if they're 6 feet apart. In that regard, if they're 3 feet apart, or closer, right, there will be a plan in place to kind of alternate around the classroom in that regard. Visitors will be required to wear masks in our schools. Once school starts, there's kids in the building. In that regard, for outside activities, masks are optional. So whether it's outside recess, outside phys ed, athletic contests, et cetera, for athletes and spectators, masks will be optional at that point. We'll continue to provide our layered approach to disinfecting and cleaning on a daily basis. We will continue to enforce distancing in the halls as best we can in other spaces, and in that regard, to avoid that clusters of kids all in one place. Our kids will be able to eat in the cafeteria like they did last year in all 4 buildings, et cetera. So none of those things actually change from last year in that regard. Band and choir can perform as long as they keep 6 feet apart. They'll be able to practice and such like that. That's from 12 feet last year, and same with physical education. So 6 foot distance, they can do their thing. Lockers will be available to kids 1 to secondary level. Sports will begin Monday, and for outside sports, they can participate. In outside sports, they do not need to wear masks for outside sports at this time. We are, well, as of today, they can do that. And for volleyball, which is an indoor high-risk sport, participants will have to wear masks. Spectators will also have to wear masks, just like visitors will in our buildings. We're going to ask the spectators to spread out by households when we're inside in the bleachers in that regard. For outside activities and interscholastic sports, participants right now do not have to wear masks. We will be starting a screening testing program with our athletes, not this coming week, but the following week. And we'll be looking to test, rotate through all of our athletes and have them tested on a regular basis each week to monitor that situation. The same with the schools we compete against. So we're looking to implement random testing of all our student athletes, about 10%.
Asymptomatic people don't need to be tested.
Again, we're going to ask that parents keep their kids home if they have any symptoms. You can contact our school nurses so they can help you through the process. Make sure our kids are healthy when we come back to school. In that regard, and we will follow and work with the county if quarantine is necessary. Those who are vaccinated will not have to quarantine according to the CDC guidance. Those who are not vaccinated will have to quarantine. Again, we'll just follow the guidance that's pretty much universal in that regard. If anybody does come in contact or heaven forbid, comes down with COVID. Talked about our facilities already. We're going to clean, disinfect our areas a couple times a day as well, and we'll keep our spaces very clean in that regard.
You have any UV systems in one
No.
school?
No. So remote instruction is still an unknown yet. We're still trying to work that out. Again, we expect all kids to be here in September for that, but we do know there might be some medically frail children that cannot be here for the situation. So we're going to work with our teachers to come up with a supportive plan, learning plan for those kids who cannot be here for that reason. So again, there's a lot more layers underneath that whole process when kids are out sick and stuff like that. I mentioned buses. Everybody will be wearing masks on the buses. That'll also be going out tomorrow. So we're going to ask parents to let us know whether they're going to ride a bus or not. If their kids ride a bus, so Mr. Nugent can plan the routes accordingly. As I mentioned, once we'll be with kids in the building, visitors will have to wear masks. Visitors will also be asked to do the health screening. We're all used to having done in the past, so have you been anywhere and septic society. So visitors will be asked to do that as well while in the schools when kids are here.
I just gotta hold you up for 1 second, Bob. You made a comment about,
Can I?
but just,
No.
this is a serious question because
They're all serious.
No, but he said
You just have to, when you come up and do the public input, he just has to give us a report.
right, and I understand that, but he said I need to notify the transportation
I really want
officer.
to ask you to save it for the public input piece, which is two topics away.
All right,
Thank you very much.
okay.
Thank you.
So that's an overview of the plan. Again, there's still some details to work out. We are waiting on, just working it out amongst, we're trying to be consistent across our area, so it's easy for people who work, maybe they work in, Catskill, but the kids go here, so there's those types of things. So we're working some of the things out as much as we can be consistent among school districts, so this will be our plan in that regard. So this is where we are today with our plan. Other things will change in the next couple of weeks with the new governor and things like that. You'll have to wait and see until that's actually done or not, and that can certainly then cause us to have to go back and review our plans.
Randy, is the testing of athletes, is that a requirement from section 2?
No. Section 2 in the New York State Code of High School Athletic Session is not providing, has come out and say that they're not going to provide any guidance or mandates, if you will, on interscholastic athletics.
And the other
It's up to
question,
the county, the county or the state DOH.
right, the other question I have is the lieutenant governor is out saying that once she becomes governor, she's going to mandate masks in schools. Do we have any other details of her comments related to that? What does she mean by that? Is that,
I think it means
mask right in the classroom, the kids would have to have mask on in the classroom? Is there any information?
I think nothing, obviously nothing specific, but what I'm gathering is the plan I just kind of outlined today would fulfill that expectation that we were demanding.
So that plan that you described would meet her
I
expectations?
believe so. Hopefully. But I know it's hopefully, to be more strict.
Now, if her plan was more strict and if this board had opposition to that, what would be the legal ramifications if this board opposed New York State mandates
Right.
that she put out?
So if there's a governor's, a law is created or, in that regard, it's called a bunch of different things. So if the governor creates an executive order or there's a DOH law, the legislature passes, let's say, a mask law, in that regard, the board, if the board ignores it, which says, no, we're not gonna do it, in that regard, or we're gonna be lax on it, then each member of the board is liable. Right, because each of you is taking an oath of office to uphold the Constitution and laws of the state of New York and laws of the United States. Read it again. So willful violation of the law, you took an oath, can cause you to be removed from office. It also sets up the board and the district to be liable for any lawsuits that may occur. And our insurance carrier has kind of pretty much made it known it would be, which would ignore the executive order of law in this regard, that they would not indemnify us. Do not cover our losses that we may incur, including legal fees.
I don't know if I read it all the way through. Were we still doing like temperature checks and parents doing the screening for their kids?
We are not, good question, so we're not gonna do temperature checks at the door.
Okay.
The screening is still to be determined. Our nurses have a meeting tomorrow with the nurses and all the school nurses in the county, and that's their topic of conversation tomorrow, what everybody's doing with that one.
But it would be pretty much what was last year, that test that you would.
Yeah, just like if you, anybody in your house has symptoms, 4 questions.
Randy, I have a question back to Bart's original question about testing the athletes. So that's not a section 2, that's a CA thing of testing our athletes.
Correct.
And what is the thinking behind that?
To monitor our kids to make sure they're safe, especially when inter-school begins, when school play begins.
Some
So again, we're still having conversations on that. The group of school districts, because we want to be consistent on that. There's a conversation we just do unvaccinated students and coaches. So that's probably where we may end up. Because many student
So we're
athletes.
sectioning out the unvaccinated versus vaccinated. Segregating.
For your words.
Right, I said right now, I said vaccinated, but I think we will end up after further conversations, that it will be unvaccinated.
And vaccinated people are still testing positive for COVID.
So who's negative, who's positive?
Randy, can you elaborate on, since Dr. Hassett met with the committee today, can you elaborate on what his thoughts are on our COVID protocols and what kind of, what he's seeing in hospitalization rates?
He was part of the conversation, I was came part of, I mean, he seemed to be in agreement with our plan, he didn't have any objections to our plan.
Did he give any oversight into, what the area is experiencing currently and what's going on in the capital district with hospitalization rates and all that?
He didn't speak.
That was really the topic of conversation, like at least in that meeting. I
Okay,
know, talking with Green County Health, Columbia County, and Rensselaer, all the DOH commissioners are nervous about what they're seeing because they're seeing more teenagers, getting it, getting the virus. So.
and do we know, I guess for a future meeting, I'd like to know what kind of symptoms they're having and that type of thing moving forward as we progress through this.
If we were able to have him come here to speak with us, I think that was on our minds.
Correct.
Answer our questions. Even over Zoom, something, some way that we could, communicate, since he is our medical professional. Any other questions?
So this is still a fluid policy at this point,
It's not, yeah, it's still being.
Yes.
a fluid process.
Okay, so we have a report on students who leave school early.
So this was asked at the previous meeting, just to kind of get an update on kids who left school or dropped out early. So I Dr. Mercer and actually we also invited Deb Kingman from probation to be here as well. She's also actively involved in a lot of our interventions. The board has had this information as well for that, and
Am I talking?
you will in a second.
Okay,
Give me
all right.
the introduction.
Oh, I just answered that.
With that, so I'm going to turn over to Dr. Mercer so she can just kind of summarize that. Everybody understands all the kids' names have X's on them.
Hello. So I was forwarded a couple of questions specifically, I think that the one question was kind of about early indicators, did we know these students were at risk before they dropped out or didn't return to school? And just so you understand our process with grade level and department PLP time, part of what our grade levels and our departments talk about, it's not just curriculum, it's not just, it's not just assessment scores and that stuff. They help us identify the students who are at risk. So every year, we start the year looking at, attendance data from the years previous. We look at, how many credits are kids, moving up into being a junior, a senior, are they behind? And we identify our students that we think are the most at risk. Well, in the first couple of weeks of school, some of them we already know are at risk of ultimately not graduating. And so, so yes, in answer to the question, we did know those.
We can't hear you back here. You need to take your mask off or move somewhere else, because nobody back here can hear you. You're mumbling.
Well, she's speaking to us, so there's no.
Was.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Meeting for us.
Yeah, the meeting.
I can stand back there. Yeah. I can use my teacher voice, that's fine.
There you go.
But you still wouldn't have heard it if I was taking that. I can be here, yeah. I can use my teacher voice. So our PLP, we have, every day we are lucky enough to have grade level or department level PLPs. Those are teachers by grade level or group by grade level, and they do talk about curriculum and events and those sorts of things. But one of the other things that they are tasked with is to help us identify students that we believe are at risk for not making adequate progress throughout the year and ultimately are at risk for not graduating. We spend a lot of time talking about those students, looking at data, attendance, grades, credit accrual, how much credit have they earned in their time. And we identify the students that we believe are the most at risk. We put teacher plans or grade level plans in place to help students. And if those plans don't work, those students also get referred to, we've changed the name of the committee multiple times. I think we're just calling it the improvement team at this point, where we get some different folks in the room to help plan some interventions and some extra supports for those students to help them be successful. Sometimes it's day-to-day success. That's what we're shooting for, but success throughout the year. So we do have a pretty robust identification process. And we're always happy when students that at the beginning of the year or mid-year that we identify as at risk, we put things in place and they walk across the stage in June. The other question really was about what else might we need. One of the things we're working on is developing our own in-house alternative learning program, an ALP program, in part because, Ms. Castle and I work together really closely. The counselors, we've kind of created our own, we use the resources that we have. We use the folks in the building that we have, and we've kind of, for a lot of our students, for those students that didn't make it on this report, for those students that graduated, it is because we created our own alternative learning program. So I invited Deb Kingman, who works with us, works with some of our students and really partners with us, and she can kind of speak to our successes.
Absolutely. I'm Deborah Kingman. I'm a senior probation officer at Greene County Probation. I've been doing this for 35 years, and I've been blessed with dealing with strictly juveniles. I deal with persons in need of supervision. I also deal with juvenile delinquents. And what I love is that every kid that comes to my department or that's referred, that may go from the school to our department or goes from law enforcement to our department because they may have committed a crime. What I love is, especially working with Coxsackie-Athens, working with Dr. Mercer, Katie Castle, the teachers, the communication is awesome. And when there's communication, what I love is that there were 5 kids that walked across the stage this year. And I was so excited to see that they actually walked off with a high school diploma. But I'm going to tell you, it wasn't easy. I know that because they are at risk. They're challenging, but they're all great kids and we just can't lose hope. We have to keep encouraging them. We've got to keep giving them alternatives, like you say, because not every kid is going to sit in that public school setting and do well without appropriate services wrapped around them. So I embrace ALP if you're going to do it in-house, because there are many Questar programs that we have to ship kids out of the school district, which I know it costs taxpayers a lot of money. So I love when schools implement in-house ALP programs, because I know Greenville has that access program. I love that schools want to take care of their kids so they're successful. But I'm going to tell you, working with CA, I look forward to it. And I like the creativity. I just, again, communication is the number one, I think, tool between the parent, the child, my department, and the school administrators. And I just want to say, I think you guys have a very good school district. And like I said, I had 5 kids that I've had involvement with, 3 of which this year walked across that stage that I never thought would have, but I did not give up when I had them. And obviously your school district didn't, because they were across that stage. So keep going. I just want to say, school teachers, your administrators, board of education, think of in-house programming for these children, because we can't give up on them. We really can't. Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
One question I have, moving forward, in an alternative learning program, what resources do you need to make that program effective that you currently don't have?
I will be asking for a social worker, like a part-time social worker, to help support, these students. That's a different function than a school counselor, and even a different function maybe than our Greene County mental health. Sometimes these kids need help being hooked up with insurance. How do they get their own insurance? How do they get working papers? How do they get food stamps? If they're 17 or 18 or 19 and they're not living at home. So that social work piece would be really great, but that social worker can also help on, help them building some of those self-management skills and that stuff. So having somebody who would at least part of the time be dedicated to that program would be wonderful.
Would this program be a separate learning space, or would it be a combination of spaces within the school?
I see a combination of spaces within the school, kind of a home-based room, and then figuring out, basically a creative mix of, in-person core classes, use of credit recovery, Apex, our online program, and then, what electives make sense, and can we help get some of these kids into maybe our CTE program, so that they leave with some credentials. Where can we kind of steer them so that they'll leave with job skills and CDOS, so also internships. I mean, we've been talking a lot about internships and potential work-based learning here at school so that they can get those hours, which allows them to take they don't have to do all the regents, they get out of one of them if they get that CDOS credential. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Last question for me is, I know we talked several years about this mentoring program that's being worked on. Is that something that you see being implemented in an alternative learning program?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it'll depend on the students. I think it'll depend on who wants to be mentor and who a student has a connection with. But yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
To what age can you keep following up with?
Till they're 21, till the end of the school year in which they turn 21. So all of the students, you don't have the names, but we will follow up with those students and encourage them to come back. We don't give up. And we have had, we certainly have had 5th year and 6th year graduates. So we don't give up.
How young do you start with the kids?
As soon as they walk in my door. As soon as they walk in the door.
So maybe some-
And maybe students, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay. Administrative positions hiring.
So just real quick, just piggybacking on Dr. Mercer. So we're going to utilize some of the federal funds that we received to kickstart this program once, they're going to have a plan in place with that. So we do have the funding to get this rolling for the next couple of years, and then we'll work to embed it as part of our just general fund as we go forward there. So we're in good shape on that side of things in that regard. As far as the grade level, we're not sure when it, where that sweet spot is, so to speak. It may be before ninth grade, it might be that 7th and 8th grade kid. So, can connect with students. Administrative, I just want to give you an administrative hiring update and things like that. That should be at your table as well, just like that. So we have 3 administrative positions that we will be hiring for this fall. First is our administrator for business and finance. That's who's retiring at the end of November, December. All right, so you can see that timeline should start kicking in for mid-September as far as when interviews get to go there. So again, that's just going to give you an overview there. We hope to have the candidate on board by early November, so they can spend several weeks, kind of a transition with that. We have a middle school principal as well, permanent position for middle school principal. So that process is basically the same process a week later as we go through. And then our house principal for student support, which that position is going to support the middle school, high school, same thing about a week later. So we got 3 parallel kind of search timelines we have going here. We're going to be going pretty soon. Pretty much like 1 week apart as far as where your role is here. As far as the board, we're going to ask if 2 board members sit. There's going to be 2 steps. Well, we're going to be, I'll screen the applicants and then send a group of applicants to the first round of interviews. So that'll be a task force, depending on the position, parents, students, like the principal positions, parents, students, employees. I'm going to ask the 2 board members sit on that first step as well. All right, and then the second round, the committees will then come and recommend a few to go into the final round, which will be the entire board and myself. All 3 of those positions. In that regard. In the meantime, on tonight's agenda, you have an interim substitute principal, middle school principal that's going to be appointed tonight. So that person will come in, start Monday. All right, and they will fill in, in that role until we have permanent people in place as well. I'm sorry, I should go back. Our goal is to have our principals in place by mid-November. Obviously, details are in there. So certain other parts of the process is we're going to put out for the principal positions when the teachers get back. We're going to put out what are you looking for. So that'll help guide the committee's work when they come up with the questions. So they say they're looking for somebody who's 6'5", that might be a question, those types of things. So that'll help guide the committee's work when you create your questions and stuff and put the rubrics together along the process. So.
I'm gonna get into our public input. There's a lot of people. If you haven't filled out a sheet, please see Michelle in the back there. I'll go by the sheets, but I do want to just ask these gentlemen, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, I'm assuming that, my name's Ian Thomas here, I'm assuming that we're gonna roll with this COVID thing until the end of time. So that being said, you're talking about masking up on school buses and that sort of thing. I know that we planned a reconfiguration for the school district sometime in the future, not necessarily this year, but down the road. Does it make sense to put more kids on more buses for more masks and more time on the buses and keeping everybody in close quarters when we can keep the districts the way they are right now? Have we looked at other districts, Carroll, Durham, Catskill, other districts that have done this pre-K thing and have resulted in shutting down a school? And then 3 years later, now there are other schools overcrowded. Again, pushing masks, causing more quarantine issues, going back to a hybrid learning exercise between half the school being remote and half the school being in person. Are these things that we've looked at outside of our district, or are these things that we're just, hey, we got a couple 100,000 coming in for this, let's go ahead and roll with it? Again, I'm not saying that's where we're going with it, but listen, if you don't have to raise my school taxes because the federal government's willing to give out a couple $100,000, by all means, go ahead and take that money. But if we're gonna shut down a school and now spend 400,000 next year because we need to hire 6 times as many buses to get the kid from Athens to Coxsackie and the kids from Hannaford that are going to pre-K all the way to Athens. Does that make sense? If you want to do the pre-K, fine, do it. But is Coxsackie more centralized than Athens is another question that I have. Why did Athens all of a sudden get put on the chopping block? Is that, has there been a discussion about that?
Well, we're not talking about closing any school.
I'm not
So-
saying you are right off the rip, but what I am saying is that this seems to be the trend across the county, across the state, is that they have 2 schools in 2 separate areas. They redistrict, let's make this one pre-K through 3 and this one everything else. And then all of a sudden, well, we don't have the pre-K. We don't have the kindergartners. We don't have the 3rd grade. So, you know what, it's easier to sell this school and put everybody over here. Now, 5 years later, you got too many people over here and you don't have this building anymore.
Yeah, again, so there's no plans to sell the school or to close schools.
I'm-
And I think what we
And in
hope to do.
in the COVID environment,
Right.
it makes more sense to have all the space you've got.
It certainly makes it another whole variable to consider.
Right.
But the whole reconfiguration piece, we're still gathering information. We're still trying to figure it out. You know, so it's not, you're right, it's not. And we're asking those questions. We're asking you to ask us those questions.
I mean, I have friends that live in the Carroll Durham district, and that was the first thing that
Yeah.
happened was they got rid of the school, they needed more money because they needed more buses, so they got rid of the school, they used that to get the buses. COVID hit, they were like, oh my God, we don't have the space, what do we do?
Yeah, we're not going in that direction. We're really trying to do what we can to look at how to support all the schools and what's the best way to do that. And this may or may not be it. There's other things that we've flown into.
That's why I was like, you're talking about, you know, just the reconfiguration has been on the radar, it's been, you know, one day it's this year, one day it's next year, that sort of thing, depending on what article you look at. And that's why I asked, is you gotta tell me when my kid's gonna be in school, I got a 3rd grade. Is he gonna be in Coxsackie? Because then I need to let the bus driver know, I got 2 kids instead of 1.
Right,
And
and
that's-
like I said, we're still looking for information, we're still asking questions, and we want to have a group of parents and community people that come and talk to us just about that stuff.
And I
Just to
think-
share those concerns.
I think with your current COVID mask mandate, which in my opinion, just throw right out the window and let it grow. Even going to a reconfiguration is a horrible idea, because eventually you're gonna be looking for the space and you're not gonna have it. And let it go right now, so you got a couple extra teachers over here, you got a few less students over there. Move the teachers around, don't move the students around.
Yeah.
Have you been coming to any of the forums? Like we've held a few forums where you can have these
My
dialogues.
job doesn't allow me to just.
Well,
pick
we've
and
had them
choose.
all different times, but I'm just saying, like, it's a better
If
dialogue.
you're doing it
and
at
it's just
6:30 in the
more-
morning, I don't have time to do
I'm,
it.
you know, I'll
And
be
it's
there at
nothing against
6:30.
you guys, I'm
No,
just
but I'm
saying,
just
like,
saying, we're trying to reach out to as many people, and it's just a little easier when you have a dialogue when it's focused on that.
no, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to like throw everything out at once, but it does all interrelate. I mean, you're gonna go from, you know, testing your athletes. I understand that that's kind of up in the air right now. It makes no sense to me to have 100 people in this room with masks on, and then say, but as soon as you walk out that door, you're okay. You can go play out on the playground without your mask on and be 3 feet away from each other.
Yeah, that's
You
what we
thought-
want to see Dr. Hassett.
But I'm
But
just
I
saying,
do
but
have to-
then we say, okay, parents, you're coming to see your kid play in their sporting event, you've got to be masked.
Okay.
Your student needs to be masked on the bench, but now your kid's playing basketball, he's not masked.
Okay, what I have to do though, is so everybody has an opportunity, but we want to try to stick to like a 3 to 4 to 5 minutes so people have a chance. But I do appreciate, and we do want to get that out later September, perhaps, I don't know, about 6:30 in the morning.
I'm just saying,
But,
I mean, you know, I get what you're saying, come to the forums, but I don't have
Yeah.
that luxury. Not everybody has that luxury.
I think we're trying to tape them too. At least one of them is. So we'll figure out how to get that, that news out so you can, I mean, for like an hour and a half. But if you want to look at the,
That's YouTube, the great thing.
okay. I have Mr. Ozinski, Matt. Yes. Do you want to come up? Okay. Get your speaker's voice.
I just want to speak on the grade regrouping, just a quick piece. I've gone to great lengths to purchase my house within walking range, of my children's elementary school. That was not an accident. The bonus that I could count on being there K through 12. Knowing that my kids would be together in the same building also meant a lot. I went to Germantown with my younger brother. He was a very nervous student. School can be intimidating, obviously. I walked my brother to his classroom every day. It made his transition much easier. I also have a unique perspective in that I was on the K-12 buses that Germantown ran. And I can tell you from my perspective, that wasn't so great. Literally first day, came home and told my mother the new C word that I had learned. Flash forward a few years later, and I'm being subpoenaed as a witness in a sexual harassment case. That was happening every day on my bus. As I said, I've gone through really great lengths to position myself really close to the school my kids are both going to go to K-12, so that I could take them to that school every day, every morning, and drop them off the same way I dropped off my brother. I understand that my needs and my wants may not necessarily line up with what's beneficial for the district at large, but I did want to make sure it was known that there are some folks that their perspective is oppositional to this for our own anecdotal reasons, as it may be, but there are some of us out there who, of course, really close to this work. Thank you.
Would you like to wait?
No, that's okay. So I've been to every forum for the grade regrouping. I've been to, except for the one in Athens, which everybody showed up to apparently. But I'm not for this. There's a lot of people who are not for this for multiple reasons. Some things that I haven't heard anything about in these forums is the finance end of anything. Where's money coming from? How are we dealing with that? The amount we spend per student right now compared to what we are getting in the grant would not add up to the pre-K students. We have to find money from somewhere. So where's that coming? Also, I bought my house up the street so I can walk my kids to school. Once again, a lot of people do that. I can't do that. My kids are going to be separated for years. My little one, high anxiety, was excited to be with her sister. Not going to happen if this goes through. So that's very disheartening. Also, in the meetings, it's all bullet point positives, no negatives. No teachers telling us why they don't agree with it. I would like to see that because there's older teachers who don't agree with it also from a professional point of view that parents wouldn't really think of some of these reasons. So I think that should be brought up also. I think that even if the teachers don't want to do it, like show up for that, do it anonymously. In talking to other parents or different citizens of the town, people have made comments that teachers are afraid of backlash from the administration. Those are from people I've spoken to, not to say that that is true on all cases. But so if teachers could do that anonymously, why not? But as a town member, I would like to know both sides, not just one. Everybody's here for the masks. Everybody's here for COVID. I think the regrouping situation right now and talking about it is getting way overshadowed. I don't think everybody can make an informed decision if there is so much outside that's affecting this. So people are more concerned, for good reason, on medical health and that of children in school. I think this is something that should be tabled for a while and gone over, whether it be 1, 2, or further, because I think it's just not, there's not enough information. And I know we're in the information gathering stage, but once again, every forum that I went to was positive bullet points. This is good, this is good. It felt like I was going to, like, it was an infomercial. Why everything's good and how it's gonna work for you. So I just think we should take a step back from this and deal with COVID, deal with the mascot being changed, deal with some more heavier issues right now and look at this at a different time.
Thank you. Kathy Jackson.
Good evening. The main topic I'd like to address tonight is the plans. Is plans for pre-K. While I'm supportive of offering options for 4-year-old children, I don't feel we've heard enough details about the plans. And much of that involves the school budget, how all the aspects of pre-K probably will be funded. But first, I'm going to just digress to a minute. I'm part of Randy's Birth to School group. I was invited by Randy. At one of the meetings, Randy pushed the idea of offering parent training. He thought it would be a use for a federal COVID grant, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that one, but it was some grant. I have connections with many nonprofits in the area and learned that Cornell Cooperative Extension offers a very similar program. I already learned that they've had it running for 20 years, including a contract with DSS. I passed that information along to Randy at our next meeting, and he met with the coordinator at CCE. So imagine my surprise when I got this that said birth to school, parents can take education. I thought, what happened? We already have this. Why would you use grant funds for something like that? Which, by the way, I'm really bothered by it's on shiny paper. It just really bothers me. The program that you push is expensive to start. You went through the whole thing of what it would take. You have to hire this company from Missouri. They come in and educate the parent teachers. And that's the biggest part of the cost. But CC already has that. They have it on their website as well, the parent education, and it's pretty similar. The one that's on the website for the school is actually the one from Missouri. It's not just ours. And as I said, they already have a contract with DSS to provide this. What else? We have to ask ourselves, was this the best use of grant funds? Was there anything else that could have helped our CA community more? Many people may have noticed, at least at the last board meeting, when you walk into the middle school, that there's signs that say there's free food available for children over the summer. I don't know if you realized it, but you have to come to Coxsackie to get that. You can't pick those up in Athens. So any parent in Athens who is having problems feeding their children, they have to spend 7 miles each way to go back and forth every day to go get their children food. That seems like that would have been a much better use of that money than it was to do something that's already exists. And no accommodations. I called the guidance counselor office and said, hey, how do we get it? Because I'm part of the library, so I wanted to make sure we advertised it in Athens, you know, how kids could go get this. And she said, I checked and there is no accommodation for getting kids in Athens food. What does that say about what we think about families in Athens? And this bothers me about the whole regrouping part, is that I feel like Athens is again being singled out as being a small community and we don't have to give them as many grades. And when your kids get finished there, they're going to spend most of their career here in Coxsackie. And I don't think that the administration has their pulse on our community of what's really needed. It's really nice to offer something if it's not already available, but by far, this is already available. Okay, and it shows with the regrouping plans. But let's get back to my main topic of pre-K. I've done some research on the full day pre-K grant and the state requirements. Did you know that the average cost to educate a student at CA is $19,886, which is spelled out in the CA information that goes to the state? Almost $20,000. Let's make it really simple numbers, right? $20,000. The grant is for $7,000 to $10,000 a year, depending on the qualifications of the teachers and also how many days of the year you're actually doing it. So if you start in January, you're only going to get half to start with. It's prorated. Where's the rest of that money coming from? I haven't seen anything about that, and I went through the budget with a fine-tooth comb. There's nothing in there about that. So how can it start up this year? One of the requirements is that the district collaborate with an eligible agency, and I printed out. I printed it out, but anyway, it says they must collaborate with an eligible agency. They must collaborate with an eligible agency and allow 10% of the grant funds to go to that agency because they want them to actually work in collaboration with a nonprofit organization or an eligible group, doesn't have to be nonprofit, eligible group within the community. Have you heard anything about that? Who are we collaborating with to offer the pre-K? And I just feel like as a board, and I'm a board member on the library, I want to know these things from my board and what's going on in my library. I would think that you would too, right? The school playgrounds are for elementary age children, as are many of the facilities. And again, I'm from Athens. If you go to the playground on Franklin or right near the ball fields, everybody knows it. There's two different playgrounds, one for under 5 years old and one for older than 5 years old. You cannot have preschoolers on a playground that is at EJA right now, or probably CAE as well. I'm not as familiar with CAE. So you have to have a new playground. There's probably other changes that have to be made to the building, capital improvements. There's nothing in that grant that pays for any of that. And I saw nothing again in the budget that pays for any of that. So in conclusion, the plan for implementing pre-K feels like a shoot from the hip without any details for you and for us to be able to hear as well. If I missed hearing the details at a board meeting, I apologize. I'm fully aware the board controls the allocation of funding. To Randy and his administration, please enlighten all of us on the details of the pre-K plan. It sounded very exciting, but did we really hear what the money was going to cover? No grant ever covers 100%. That's a dream world. And so that's what made me go and look at this stuff up. And so, as I noted at the beginning, this administration's track record for understanding, responding to the needs of our community, including those who are hungry, is questionable. Being fiscally responsible is a substantial requirement of the job. I've reviewed the 2021-2022 budget, comparing it to the actuals from a couple of years before that. The results are quite disturbing. There's a lot in there where the same number is used. Like I remember one of them being $6,400, and yet in the actuals for the past couple of years, it was less than 500. So there is big amounts of change. I'd be happy to return at some point or chat with any of you personally on some of those analyses that I did. It's what I do for the library too. We go through it and make sure that what you actually ended up with spending, was that close to your budget? And if it wasn't, how are you grabbing that money and saving us money the next year? Just taking the budget and saying, oh, increase it by 2% and we're good, the state likes us. That's not the right answer. The right answer is to do the best for the people here and being the most fiscally responsible. Thank you very much.
We are going to talk a little bit later about the pre-K, so if you're able to stay a little while, we will get to that and some of the summary and the 10% and the co-op and the agencies that we're working with. And just a brief, when I first joined the board, I worked with Leslie on bringing that summer breakfast and lunch program here. It was actually, I think, a Department of Agriculture program through the federal government, but we had to qualify. And so we had to, a lot of it is based on their regulations and how the federal government tells you how to spend money. So we had to qualify. So we had to do a census one summer, the first summer. And I think it was 51% had to qualify for free or reduced lunch of the kids on the campus that one summer. So we had a lot of kids that come here and also from other districts, and they could count and do summer school and such. So we made that. We were able to do that. So we applied and got that for the summer for the breakfast and lunch. And I was really pleased that we were able to do that because there aren't a lot of sites And really, anybody, somebody from Utah can come to our site as long as they're under 18 and have free food. So we paired that with our summer recreation program that probably a lot of your kids and grandchildren attend.
Athens is eligible this year, I was told.
Well,
And
that's
they
right,
have
that's
summer.
right, because we were not happy that we couldn't, extend that to Athens. So I know, I don't want to neglect to Mary DeStefano applying for a grant that basically made that uniform for all the kids. And it's such a nice thing, because then kids, the free and reduced then lunch is good, that, no kids should be hungry, but you don't want to have kids feel like they have to, here's my, ticket or, something. So this is not income based. Anybody can take part of it.
So during COVID, we managed to get meals from Coxsackie to Athens. We did a study here years ago, never updated the study to include Athens and just wrote Athens up.
No, I'm just talking
Okay.
to this,
No, I just-
to this one.
That's what I'm saying, we
program.
made amends during COVID when everybody was remote to make meals here and get them to Athens. At
Yeah.
no point did somebody that was elected say, hey, you know what, maybe we can do this with the summer program. We did it all through
Yeah, I
COVID,
think that's
maybe we
still
should
our-
extend it.
It's still a wish, and I thought we might be able to do it this year, but anyway, I just want to address those things with you, Ms. Jackson. I appreciate your coming and telling us things. So keep- Tiffany Russo.
Oh.
Tiffany?
Hey, can you call somebody else?
No problem. No problem. Hello.
I'm gonna try to use my dad voice so everybody can hear me. I'm not really here to take one position over another. I want to first of all thank members of the board who are willing to challenge certain policy and top administrators. I know there's many here this evening to talk about or to get answers regarding guidance for mask mandates or to speak their piece regarding that potential guidance. And I understand that some of those things, like mandates, will come from authorities that are higher than the district's governing body. And that said, at this time and at the time of the organization of all these community members, there's been no definitive guidance or mandates that are set in place, only a suggestion or what is recommended. Tonight, I stand in support of these people as a parent, as a community member, and a member of the press. I told this board back on March 18th that the time was coming for accountability, and I think the time has come. This community demands transparency from the governing body and of its top administrators. We want this district to do a better job in listening to what we're saying. We want this district to understand that we hold the highest authority over our children and their personal well-being. We have entrusted you with our children. And in some regard, we believe you're failing. Now, don't take that statement as me saying that our children aren't being educated, because I believe that they are. And don't take the statement as me criticizing the way that you handled the COVID crisis this past year. But do take my statement as a declaration that the time has come to change course and to pay attention to those that you continue to ask of. You want our support in many ways, and equally, we want to feel supported by you. We want to know whether we're talking about mascots or masks, that you're listening to us. We want to know that when you're talking about where and how our children will be educated and how they will get to school, that you're listening to us. We want to know that those who work within these walls that give of themselves to educate our children are doing so without fear of retribution for what they stand for and when they stand with us. We want to know that those who educate our children are doing so with integrity, without political, religious, or other bias. We want to trust that our children are safe within these walls, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. We want to know that our children won't lose their personal identity behind a mask or that their health won't be a cause of concern because of it. We are not doctors, we are not scientists, and neither are the politicians, and neither are any one of you. We are free people, and we should have the free will to decide what is best for our children, as we carefully have done so since the time they were conceived. Being told to trust the science when the variables of that science that we're being asked to trust continue to fail seems like ground for re-examination of that science. We need to know that if we move forward with grade groupings, that we aren't killing a community as we try to save salaries. Now, academic equity doesn't seem like a bad thing to me, but in hurting an entire community like the town of Athens does. It also bothers me that people like Mrs. Leonard here, who has given up her time for many years teaching our children pre-K, will be without a job if this goes forward. We need to look at this issue from all sides and take a little stock in the people that we ask to support this district, especially when that community is paying the most in school taxes per capita, which is almost a quarter of CA's budget, or at least it has been within the last 5 years. But in conclusion, I want to say that I love our schools, I love our communities, and I would hope that this governing body would take all of our words tonight into strong consideration, because the rumbling, it's not the blue thunder you think we want to hear, it's not a cyclone, and it's not the sound of some mythical raven hawk. It's the sound of a community that's demanding better of you.
Thank you, Mr. Beal.
I'll just go right from here, y'all can hear me? First off, I don't know how I can follow that, that's just correct. But I am gonna say, because y'all know me, first off, with your testing to children, because the other end of the questions I had on there, they already answered them. I don't give consent to anyone testing my children. Making it known. Okay, anybody else want to follow? Okay, and I see what you've kind of come to in making a decision on the mask. You're gonna go back to the mask, you're hemming and hawing, you're not staying true, okay? But I want to just make it well known that you may want to consider the damage it's really doing to the children. First off, the flu is more dangerous to children, but we never thought of masking. There's less chance of kids dying from the virus than the flu. 480 people, 80 children died in 18 to 19 flu year, less than that died last year with the virus, okay? Next is the psychological damage doing to them. Trying to make them think that everyone around them is toxic, or they're gonna get sick and die. Think of how the germs and the carbon dioxide that's not getting out through the mask is actually, and they keep breathing it, is damaging their lungs and damaging their immune system. In conjunction with the sweat, dirt, and everything else, and they constantly finger blast their face. Also, not being able to see facial expressions when someone's talking. This is especially important in developing children, little kids, and children with disabilities. I'll stop for 1 second. I was in a bank 6 months ago, had to go in there. I don't wear a mask, not going to wear a mask, but I had to do what I had to do. There was a little kid in there who was 7, 8 months. Her mother and was holding her, and his mother was holding her. Kid looking around like a scared crab. Pulling the mask down, smiled. The kid lit up like there was no tomorrow. Put it back up. The kid was like looking like, when are you going to show me your face again? Okay, so we're damaging these kids, and by making them wear a mask, okay, because someone else feels good, because you wear a mask so that person's safe, okay, it's just called child abuse. It's really what it comes down to, it's child abuse, okay? And anyone that keeps pushing that notion is pushing child abuse. If they want to wear a mask, anybody wants to wear a mask, I'm not saying don't. You want to wear pink underwear, wear pink underwear. But if someone doesn't want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask. I don't care what a mandate says, it's not a law, and it's still a law. We're Americans. I thought this was America, a free country. If those wanted to wear a mask, go right ahead. Those that don't want to, don't wear it. Remember, this is a public area. This community is what makes this building and everything standing. So like that gentleman said, I hope you're gonna look at what it is, before you make a decision.
Melissa Seaver.
Dear Board of Education of the Coxsackie-Athens School District, I am not one that complains about the school district. I love the school district. I respect all of you on the board. It can be a thankless job, and I get that. But there are a lot of major issues going on in the school district, and I felt compelled to write this letter as they just keep piling up and piling up. The first issue I'm having a hard time following is the mascot issue. I would love the mascot to stay the Indian. I was an Indian, but I know the board had voted it down. But here is where I'm confused and honestly feel a little lied to. I thought and heard from board meetings that there would be a committee of parents, staff, students, and community members to help create a new mascot. I don't see that happening at all. All I see is surveys going out in the middle of summer where our students are not involved. Most of our students don't even have the devices because they're elementary students and the devices are provided by the district, which they're taking away during the summer. They can't even vote. Why is that going on? Why is there a huge rush to change the mascot? Why can't we take time to create it and have our students invested in it? No student input, that just fathers me. How do you expect everyone to feel pride in a new mascot if they're not involved in creating it? Like I said, I was very upset that the Indian was being removed, but I felt a bit better knowing that my sons would be involved in creating a new mascot. Yet again, our students don't matter in that decision-making process. We have a lot of creative students. They could come up with a new design for a mascot for us. We're not taking that into consideration. We're having them vote during the summer. They're not in school. They don't have the devices. The new pre-K program is an issue a lot of people are going back and forth on. I truly believe our district needs a pre-K program, and I love that CA is using the grant money to possibly put one in. I know for a fact that EJA has the room for the pre-K classroom. In most Greene County schools and most Albany County schools, the pre-K programs are on a lottery system. You never have enough classrooms to accommodate the whole grade level. Putting pre-K in shouldn't disrupt space at EJA, especially because I know the company Advanced Therapy rents a classroom at EJA now, and I believe the district is looking to use that room and they will no longer be at EJA. My question is, has CA looked into partnering with the local pre-K program so that so many of our kids have gone to and that are excellent programs? I know a couple of districts that are doing this so they can build a community and know that the community is involved in this, and they're not making local business owners upset that have provided pre-K for our students for a long time. This is something that could be done, and you can provide more space for the classrooms. Another issue is the reconfiguration of the elementary schools. I was one of the parents 4 to 5 years ago that sat at a board meeting with the president at the time, and I fought this, and he said, this is not going to happen, it's a dead issue. I heard it, I was there. Now here I am fighting it again. I have talked to EJA teachers, Coxsackie Elementary teachers, and middle schools on this issue, and I've counted more teachers against this than for it. Most have written letters about it, but they weren't even seen. And others are afraid to say anything because they don't want the retaliation against them. That doesn't seem like a great work environment to me. It seems like a toxic one. I keep hearing it will be better for the teachers, all the teachers, or just a handful of teachers. Plus, COVID introduced to us a wonderful technology program to communicate better with Zoom and Google Meets. So CA is a technology school, and this can be used to have wonderful communication between grade levels and buildings. Teachers could meet daily and be miles away from each other and have great amount of work done. This to me isn't a good reason to reconfigure. Then I hear all students will be together from the start. Does that really affect our students? I went to CA. I went to Athens Elementary. My husband went to CA. He went to Coxsackie Elementary. A lot of you sitting on this board went to CA, either CJA or Coxsackie. We met together whether we were in 7th grade or 5th grade. Some of my best friends to this day were Coxsackie Elementary students. My son is going to be a 6th grader. He met some of his best friends when he entered into that 5th grade. I hear 5th grade can be moved back down to the elementary school. How can this happen? I don't think there's enough room. I could be mistaken, but I'm trying to do the math in my head with sections of classes and students and classrooms. Plus, has anybody on the board done a report on how our population has grown in the past year and a half due to COVID? We all have seen it. Houses are being bought up left and right all around us. Vacant houses that were vacant for 10 years have now got people in them. You don't think this is going to affect our population growth and our school growth in the next 10 years? Do the math. Do the research. Another issue with the reconfiguration, I have heard that Coxsackie Elementary would be 3rd through 5th grade and be on the middle and high school schedule. We all know buses will be a concern with elementary, middle, and high school all being on the same buses. But I keep hearing 10th period will be used for clubs, extra activities, and academic support. I thought 10th period was just for academic support and not for activities. So it's a 3rd through 5th graders' responsibility to ask the teachers to split the time for their academic support if they need help in math and to be able to go to like a chess club. It's their responsibility to ask the teacher. You are asking 3rd through 5th graders developmentally, they are the elementary level. They can't remember to bring their books to class, but you're asking them to take on the responsibility to try to figure out their time so they can get the academic support they need and they can go to the club that they want to go to. Think about it. To me, that seems extremely unfair because a student that struggles sometimes only comes and gives the effort in school to do the extra clubs and activities. Then you're asking parents that have age gaps in their elementary students to have 2 different schools, 2 different bus routes, 2 different start times, 2 different end times. That is insane to me as a parent that has those age gaps in my children, especially for the elementary level, because they can't get on the bus by themselves. They can't walk home by themselves, and they can't be left by themselves. So you have to make sure as a parent that you're getting the 2 different buses, 2 different schools, 2 different times. Then what about the communities on the reconfiguration? This affects the community support and activities. Our libraries, for one. Athens Libraries does a lot of after-school help and activities for the EJA. If you have it be a pre-K through 2nd building, those kids are not old enough to walk down to the library. So what happens to those programs? Then the Coxsackie Library, they also do a lot of school activities and homework help. You don't think they're going to be inundated with kids? 3rd through 5th graders? They're going to be overflowing. I've been in that library after school. It's overflowing now. And then you have our fire companies, you have our senior centers, you have our garden clubs, and you have our PTOs. Have any of them been considered in this? Have any of representatives been a part of the reconfiguration talks? Because it affects not just the schools, it affects the whole communities, Athens and Coxsackie. The reconfiguration has a lot of questions that aren't answered. And what is the real reason behind it? Many of us in the community and sitting on the board have received our education at either EJA or Coxsackie Elementary, the way that it is right now. And we turned out just fine. So why complicate a school district and create a lot of issues when this is not broke? This is not broke. EJA is doing a fantastic job. CE is doing a fantastic job. That middle school is doing a fantastic job. It is not broke. Our elementary schools, the way they are fine, especially we're dealing with a pandemic. In conclusion, these are all major issues that to me seem like they didn't have to be brought up or could have been prevented. We are still dealing with a pandemic and our schools are really dealing with this every day. Your students, parents, staff, and community are tired and we're stressed out. So for all of this to be poured onto us seems very inconsiderate and irresponsible as a district. We should be focusing on getting our schools back, dealing with attendance issues, and most importantly, the mental health of your students, your staff, your parents, and your community. I have not heard once about dealing with the mental health of our students and support of them coming back in full time. Some of these students have not been in school for a year and a half. I seriously hope you consider everybody's comments and questions here tonight. We are here because we care. We are shouting from the rooftops that these are problems that we want to be seen dealt with. So I hope you consider all of this. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Melissa. So we want to be sure that when we have that grade reconfiguration program, that anybody can come just, fill us with all these ideas and concerns. You're able to come or send us an email.
When is voting? When does it have to be voted upon?
Well, there's no-
Determined in 2022.
Yeah, there's no deadline, so we're still in the gathering stage.
Well, you have to know before, obviously, that's clear.
Yeah, I mean, but there's no date for that. This is why we want to have this public hearing, and I believe there's a voting period for mascots in September for the kids. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, but thank you for all this. Mr. Maston, William?
Just stay right here. I'll try to put on the future for us. We've been talking about the mask policy quite a bit, and unfortunately, I think we're all being held hostage by the future governor at this point, which is much too bad because Governor Cuomo finally gave us something decent, and that's not going to be. He said everybody beyond New York City, all those districts could make up their own minds. And I've heard that on radio and on television news 3, 4, 5, a dozen times. But the new governor's coming in, so the lieutenant governor's coming in. And she wants to make a big splash, she can ruin it. But we'll see what happens. She can't rely on the CDC because they change their minds every other day. And Fauci should have been fired months ago. He changed his mind. It would be nice, you guys, everybody's here are hardworking people, and we really need to follow the science. If you don't watch Fox News or Newsmax or listen to the TV, the radio talk show guys during the day, you are not getting the actual science. Bureaucratic science people that aren't like Fauci have poisoned everything. You need to listen to Dr. Atlas from the Hoover Institute, Dr. Markey from Johns Hopkins, who's been right on track all the way, as has Dr. Atlas, and all the people from the Hoover Institute and the Manhattan Institute as well. it's, when science gets bureaucratized and doctors become politicians like Fauci, he just likes being in the limelight. You know, why can't people figure that out? He should have been fired a year ago. He's worthless. He's just out there for himself. And how can you change your mind every other week, every other month? You know, it's just crazy. So I think we need to really follow the science and not listen to these bureaucrats, but listen to good doctors, listen to the Cleveland Clinic, listen to Johns Hopkins. You know, you're gonna find real science there. And partly why I am definitely for a no mask policy is that all the credible science says that pre-K and K through 12 are in an almost infinitesimal chance of getting COVID-19. They do not carry it to adults, i.e. teachers or staff. And there's so much screwing around with the numbers. The older people who had comorbidities, no, they're automatically COVID deaths. Well, they've done that with children too, and it's wrong. We've been screwed by the federal government, the state government, not so much local government, because they have to deal with the crap for the federal and state government. Secondly, there is research that has been done by the Cleveland Clinic, by Germany, Sweden, almost all the European countries. It shows that children masked many hours on any day or the entire day. Well, as this gentleman said and other people said, it is actual science, a real science people did this work. That their CO2 level will be elevated, and that is an unhealthy situation. And also, when they breathe the same breath over and over again, that is bringing non-COVID-19 germs, giving them again another possibility of having some more health problems. Thirdly, there is an abundance of data, as this gentleman said and other people have said, that the mental and developmental problems and pressure on pre-K, K through 12, and into college and university, children particularly are suffering because they don't see other people's faces. They have to know, they have to see everybody's face. They suffer from that. They don't see the smiles. They don't see the other facial things, the fun things that we did as kids and had our own little groups and fun little things that we did and little signs we had to each other. Still miss all of that. These studies around the world have said these children are suffering and suicide is going up. It's at least 20% higher in actually the high school level, teenage level, but it's higher in a lot of areas. Parents, children, grandparents, teachers, there's a higher police. It's the highest police suicide rate now than there's ever been. Masking and not supporting the police, which is all involved in the politicized science, quote unquote, and people like Fauci that don't give a damn except his $444,000 paycheck. He's the highest paid person in the entire federal government. Why? I don't know. He's just hung around long enough. Secondly, I guess I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but this is a crucial thing and tied in with the masks and government control and bad science. I want the board to, as soon as they can, ban critical race theory unanimously, or as close as you can. Critical race theory is nothing. It's useless. There is no place in any educational curriculum or anywhere else in our entire culture and government for critical race theory. It is only the far leftists, radicals, that are pushing this because they are, if you haven't noticed it, destroying our country. We're lucky we live. I thank God every day I live in Greene County because it's normal, basically. And I know people would jest. Well, there's plenty of places where it's absolutely insane. But I'd rather have this kind of normal than what's out there in most of New York State and most of the rest of the country. In the southern border, that's even more. But this critical race theory, it is horrible stuff. It's nothing. It's just indoctrination. There is no place for it. It is Marxist communist indoctrination whose sole goal is to destroy our American Democratic Republic and our wonderful, loving, giving, philanthropic, over 250-year traditions. There's nothing in it. When you hear CRT, you better wake up and you better get people together and you better kill it fast because it is no good. It is perverting the education. It is perverting the police department. They're perverting the military with it now. It's going into businesses. It's just ridiculous. It's tearing apart what makes America American. And I'd also like to say, and they hinge really big that we're a racist country. We are probably the least racist country in the entire world. We have been the melting pot of the whole world, and we have kept ourselves together. So you mark my words, not just this mass crap, but this critical race theory is going to be our undoing if we don't get it and stomp on it first. Buffalo schools adopted it very early on, the 1619 project. That is total horse crap. There's not even a historian part of it. They say everything began when the first slave was here. That wasn't even when the first slave was here. The first slave was a white man who was a slave on the eastern shore of Maryland to a black man. Or pick your variety. But please, this mass thing we have to solve, it's hurting our kids, it's hurting our whole society, but don't let this CRT crap in. Don't be lulled into this crap. Anybody who ever wants to talk about it or be directed to resources, it's killing this country. It is in the Congress. It's ruined the Democrat side of the Congress. It's all filled with that. So I thank you very much. And I just hope.
I know I said at the beginning, we were going to look at 3 to 5 minutes. And I don't want to interrupt people, and I know people have things to say, but I know we're all starting to wilt because it's hot. So just as you talk, maybe talk a little faster, just so everybody can have a chance and we can hear everybody has to say. If Jessica Vermillion is here. Jessica?
There's no one. Okay. I don't really have a teacher voice. All the kids are always like, hey, you need to be up. But anyway, I wasn't sure if I was gonna do this. It was really hard, but my name is Jessica Vermillion. I am a former graduate of CA, a mother of 2, and an employee with the district for 5 years. I've been on the fence about speaking as it is absolutely professional suicide, as I've witnessed of others as well as you board members who have done so. Last year, I witnessed these COVID protocols firsthand and the effect they had on the children. Some did not complain as it was not in their nature, despite the toll it took on them mentally or physically, while others were very verbal about their dislike of masks, inability to breathe, and anxiety they endured from them. I witnessed students easily become fatigued, red-faced, and feel ill often. I've seen the insides of these masks, which look like a petri dish. These disgusting masks would be chewed on, dropped on the floor or ground, and strapped back on their faces, which cannot be healthy. Another issue I have is masks hinder the ability to read social cues and see expressions, which are very important developmentally. I also never realized how important reading lips was. Some children are soft-spoken or hard to understand, and repeatedly asking them to repeat themselves is frustrating to the student and deters them from participating. I also noticed it was just as hard for students to understand what I or other teachers were saying at times. What about the trauma children? Do they not deserve an education in an environment they are comfortable in? An environment they are harped on to cover their mouth, which may trigger trauma? We do not know all the trauma children. These mandates, protocols are absolute child abuse. As mandated reporters, it is our job to protect the children in our care, not cause harm and abuse. I love my job, but I love and care for the students more, and if speaking up puts a target on my back, so be it. There is plenty of research negating the big pharma politician pocket-lined science. The ones pushing these protocols are making money. The ones against them have nothing to gain or lose. We need to prioritize the students and not the politicians, the ones lining their pockets off our children's backs with complete disregard of what is best for them. Masks are a gateway to forced vaccination. Everyone should have the ability to decide what is best for them and what they feel comfortable with. Wash hands, stay home when sick. Yes, masks, no. Sick kids home is what kept us open, not the masks. I understand the district is stuck between a rock and a hard place with government funding dangled over their heads and liability, but we the parents also have that ability. If we pull our children out, you lose your federal funding for each child pulled out. We as parents want you to protect and stick up for our kids. We will only have your back if you have ours. Whether you back us or not, you will be held liable legally by the parents. It's our children's turn to participate in an education at their comfort level. Those scared can remote or homeschool if they have an issue with bare faces. That's all I have to say.
Stephanie Switzer.
So before I start, I just wanted to address Jamie and Bart on the sport and the testing that happened. So the day before basketball started, we got an email saying that it was going to be mandatory that our athletes were going to be tested the next day before the sport started, which was that next evening was when practices were supposed to start. So I called, I spoke to Mr. Nacarado and Mr. Squire and stated that my child will not be tested without me present, that I wanted an appointment with them in order to make sure that I was there. So I brought her in, she was tested. The whole day I spent trying to figure out if this was something that was actually mandatory. It's not mandatory. I was very upset that I was forced to have my daughter tested before she could play basketball. Would never put her through that and tell her she couldn't play. So with that said, I'm sure you read my letter to Mr. Squire dated August 5th. I won't reiterate everything in that letter, but I will share some of it with the community at the end. But first, let's review some of the data from the CDC, our most trusted advisor. That data I am referencing is available in the folder I'm providing as well as the CDC website. Children have a 99.997% COVID-19 survival rate. They have a higher risk of dying from the flu. In the 2017-2018 flu season, which is November to March, 643 children under 18 died. In 2018 to 2019 flu season, 477 children died. In the 2019-2020 flu season, 434 children died. Comparatively, 423 children have reportedly died of COVID-19 as of August 11, 21. That is less child deaths from COVID-19 than each of the last 3 flu seasons, and in line with a virus we have never masked for, nor did we even know the statistics of or care. As you look at more data, the 423 reported deaths in children from COVID-19 is over a period of 20 months since January 2020, not over a 4-month period. Winter flu season, as shown in the flu data. This means the risk of death for children from COVID-19 versus flu per season is even lower than the numbers show. Also, flu death reporting is aged 0 to 17. COVID-19 death reports all the way through 18. To those of us not paying attention, which was definitely myself for a long time, the CDC's reporting its inconsistencies skews the COVID-19 death number to be higher. Also stated, if a child passes COVID-19 to an adult under 17, the adult survival rate is 99.85%. When you look at these numbers, the real stats, the real percentages, and then look at the restrictions being placed on our children, it is obvious that New York State and our schools, who we entrust our children to, now seem committed to hurting our children in the name of this so-called safety. To continue to dehumanize our children is disgusting. Do we really want our children to believe that masking is normal and that being disconnected and kept away from each other is okay? Do we want them to go around thinking they are going to die if they don't wear a mask? Shame on anyone putting that fear into a child. It is okay, it isn't okay, and they have suffered enough. Many of these children are mentally and physically done with masks. It not only hinders their breathing, it causes extreme anxiety, fear, instability, and deters communication. To force them to wear them is not safe. That goes for sports too. It's sick of me to watch these kids running around on the courts inside and outside trying to breathe in a mask. Watching our poor little elementary kids on their outside walk with masks on. That was child abuse, period. Seeing adults literally chased down on an outdoor sporting event, sitting 20 feet from everyone told to wear a mask. Are you serious? We also had teachers that insisted on teaching that instead of teaching, spent their day being mask police. One statement was that all day long, my teacher just yelled about masks. Sounds like that creates a great learning environment for these kids that are already so far behind. Then we had a teacher saying that her unborn child was in danger if they didn't keep their mask up. Totally inappropriate. I'm asking you all to unmask our kids and make it optional. We as parents should be making this decision based on the best interest of our children, not you or not anyone else in this school. Anyone who feels unsafe, you can wear a mask and protect yourself. Don't force healthy children to become ill. Believe in the science, the same science we're supposed to be teaching our children and not the politics. Do the right thing for the physical and mental health of our kids. As mentioned in my letter to the board, my priority and my primary focus as a mother is to protect my children and advocate on behalf of them because no one else will, and that's what I plan to do. With that said, I do not consent to Riley and Sawyer being masked this school year or ever again. They will not be wearing masks for their own mental health, well-being, and safety. They will not be tested as I refused last year, and they will not be screened any longer. They have doctors who can screen them if they become ill. I reserve the right for both to receive an in-person education, as remote learning is de facto segregation and discrimination. I have raised both Riley and Sawyer to always obey authority, so it was not an easy conversation to have with them. I have also raised them to stand up for themselves and have instilled in them what our civil rights and liberties are, but most importantly, that our Constitution is not an ever-changing document. In closing, I hope you as a board have sought out advice on the legality of these recommendations to help you make an informed decision. If you intend to force either of my kids to wear a mask or suffer punishment or suspension if they don't comply, I intend to hold each and every one of you accountable. Hoping my small little town will fight this to the very end. We as parents now need to stand up and fight. Enclosed in this folder is a notarized letter with official and personal notice of liability. There is a copy for each of you, as well as each building administrator and nurse. This letter has been circulated across New York State, and over 800 have been delivered to multiple school districts across the state. It isn't just going to go away. I intend more to follow from our community. If you attempt to force mask wearing, you will need to provide a formal written statement to Scott and I and the law you are following to enforce it. Thank you for your time.
A little reacting to people here, and I said this the last time, the 9 of us are really here for the same reasons you are. All our children either went to school or are here now, or our grandchildren are here. There's no other agenda. There's no reason to want to hurt you or your children. It's our children too. So,
Then let's be the district that stands up.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
It's a mandate, it's not a law.
But I hope that we can dialogue respectfully together and come up with.
And that means shove masks on all the children.
When you walk in this building, it says, be braver than you think you are. Let's be braver than you think you are and stand up here and now. Right, that's what you say is right.
Stand up to the state,
This
did you
is,
stand up to the feds?
this is public input again, that we want to continue tonight. And there's still a few people who'd like to speak that have signed up. So would Jean Olivera like to speak? Jean?
Before I read my statement, are there any other copies of the agenda? Because when I printed off this afternoon, it's not the same. Currently, the one on is the same, but if you change anything after you post it, you're required to write it as an amendment, and that was not done.
I know they're working on the agenda.
Take back to school.
Because we were having. That's all afternoon too, so maybe we could make sure that if Michelle is here, the agenda is correct, so that
Well, currently,
when anybody can go.
the
on.
one that is on the website
Yeah.
matches the one that was handed out tonight.
Oh,
But if you change it after it's been posted, and I have a copy of the one that was on this afternoon, you must write the changes as amendments, clearly highlighted. That was not done. I want to believe I can trust the Board of Ed and the administration to do what is best for the students in our community. I cannot imagine why anyone would take on such a thankless, time-consuming, and unpaid position if they did not feel called to make the Coxsackie-Athens School District a better place for our children and community. There are, however, 4 areas of concern that make me wonder if you have earned my trust. First, the situation with the middle school principal. I realize that since August 2nd, the August 2nd meeting, both the interim and permanent positions have been posted. Hiring tonight, the interim was not part of the afternoon agenda. I would like to have known that, so I could have Googled him.
What she said.
Hey, my district hired someone who lasted 2 days because after being hired, it was found out that he was being sued for harassment from his previous. So it's important. The Board of Ed accepted the previous principal's retirement on March 30th, 2021 at a special Board of Ed meeting. At the August 2nd meeting, I was reassured that the Board of Ed had been discussing it between then and now. I went back to all the Board of Ed meeting minutes that had been posted on the website since March 30th. The next mention of the situation was on June 17th. Those minutes stated that the discussion was a follow-up to the discussion at the previous meeting. I looked at the April 15th, April 20th, and May 20th minutes and could not find anything in them regarding the middle school principal. So either it was left out of the minutes or the discussion was not held in a public forum. Neither of those situations is acceptable. I also don't understand what you needed to discuss. We were losing a middle school principal. He needed to be replaced. That's it. And why did it take 3 minutes to even bring it up again? 3 months to even bring it up again? There is no discussion at the June 22nd meeting. There was a discussion at the July 22nd meeting. The discussion was tabled by the Board of Ed president because of legal issues needing to be discussed. No final decision was made until the loss of the Dean of Students Athletic Director. I might have that title wrong. The only reason I can even fathom for this delay is that the district wanted to see if we could manage without a middle school principal. Was having the high school principal cover 7 to 12 and the Coxsackie Elementary principal cover K to 6 an experiment? If things were managed successfully, would you have cut the position of middle school principal? Do the high school and Coxsackie Elementary principals not have enough to do already? Second, the school mascot. I don't want to offend anybody here, but I can accept the need to change the mascot. I went to Siena College. When I was at Siena, we were the Indians. Now we're the Saints with a St. Bernard mascot. Looking back, I realized that having a half-naked white man running around at basketball games dressed in the stereotypical Indian attire, complete with headdress, may not have been the most respectful. So it was changed. What I don't like is that nominations were accepted and then voting on the nominations was conducted completely over the summer. Summer is the time when people are least on the lookout for important things like this. Nominations should have commenced in September with clearly stated goals and unacceptable nominations clearly defined on the survey. The first round of voting should have been conducted in October. Now we are stuck with the current list. The Board of Ed will take, I assume, the top vote getters from this round of nominations to narrow down the choices. And we have lost an opportunity to seriously consider our options and involve as many people in the community as possible. Plus, you still have the continued problem of actually reaching everyone in the community. Only people with children in the school or people who work for the school hear about some of these things. Third, the realignment. This is probably the most sensitive subject. At the last forum I attended, and I attended all three, one of the administrators stated that discussions for realignment started about a year ago, pre-COVID. I asked her to qualify that because there is a significant gap between March 2020, when COVID started, and August 2020, a year from now. She thought about it and then stated that the discussion had been brought up pre-COVID and tabled for later. She also stated that the discussion had resumed at the May or June 2020 meeting. Why was it tabled? Why did the Board of Ed believe that May, June 2020, in the midst of COVID chaos, was a good time to revisit this proposal? I cannot go back to the 2019-2020 Board of Ed minutes to confirm any of this, read the discussions, or determine the answers to my questions because they're not posted on the website. I am still not convinced the teachers really want this. Did the leaders come knocking on the door of the superintendent out of the blue? Was it brought up at a cafe meeting, which is led by the superintendent and possibly prompted by him? Do team leaders truly represent their team? Did they even consult their team members, or were they truly only speaking for themselves? Who chooses the team leaders? The superintendent and assistant superintendent, or any of them non-tenured? As a teacher, I would be influenced by teacher support. I am not fully convinced the vast majority was for this alignment. As was already brought up, are they untenured? Are they afraid of retribution? And finally, what is truly best for the well-being of our students? I have been both a middle school and high school teacher. Believe me, the middle school needs a solid, permanent principal. That is the age that is most difficult for students. This was also brought up at the forums. The mascot is a very emotional topic. A former superintendent of mine mentioned at a meeting that he thought they should change the mascot. And he made the mistake of doing it while the softball team was present to be recognized for just winning the state championship. There was crying, there was moaning. Two ladies were extremely upset. They had just lost their father from cancer. They were like, my father was a Clipper, I'm gonna be a Clipper, my kids are gonna be Clippers. They were devastated. School realignment is a huge topic, not publicized enough, and timing is questionable. I've been told numerous times, especially at the forums, that the well-being of our students is the top priority. Really, everyone acknowledged that this coming year will be difficult for students. Students will be trying to get back to normal. They will basically be going through PTSD. I know when I first went to a mall and there was a lot of people there, I very nearly had a panic attack. If someone in her 50s was that traumatized, imagine how the kids feel. Don't think the kids are thinking about these three things? Ask them. Even if their parents are not discussing these things with them, they will be getting the vibes of stress and anxiety. After 9/11, my daughter had two imaginary friends move in with us. Their parents were killed in the attack. She was 4. She didn't watch the news or read the newspapers. Although we had the news on, she would not have even noticed or understood, except she picked up on our behavior and knew that something was terribly wrong. Maybe these three things need to be discussed. Maybe we need to make decisions. If we are truly, truly interested in the well-being of our students, we should not have procrastinated so much on the middle school principal position, and we should table discussions and decisions on the other two until they are widely publicized, things return to normal, and everyone has had time to adjust.
Everyone. I just wanted to come forward and talk a little bit about what our time here in school was like when we had to shut down. It was scary, it was lonely. We went from a building of 300 students to just a handful of staff while children and teachers were home learning remotely. It was not fun. It was very nerve-wracking, to say the least. And that went on from March to June, and then the summer came, and people were getting out a little bit more because things were getting a little bit better. And then fall came, and we were in our protocols and masking and temperature taking right outside that door. That was my duty every day. The kids were so happy to be back at school. They missed us as we missed them. I've been in education now here at Coxsackie-Athens School District for 21 years. And in all my time, I've never, ever, ever experienced a year in the school teaching, supporting teaching, because I'm an assistant, the way I did this year. Mrs. Miller had me doing things that I just didn't even think I could do. I helped with some RTI math. That was my position all year with kindergarten first graders and fourth graders. I had to learn the remote thing. I had to learn how to get on that Google Meet and do it. And I probably still have that link open. Maybe those students want to say hello. So it was tough, but we did it. And we did it because we had to. We didn't want this virus to get our kids or to get us or to shut down again. And so we all came to school with the hope that maybe this isn't going to happen again, because it was horrible. And it wasn't just here, it was nationwide, it was global, it was the whole world. And now as we climbed out of it somewhat, there's still ramifications of COVID, because if you look at our local businesses, and you'll notice, Ask isn't open this day. Hey, why isn't Griffin's open on Sunday? All these little things, and it's not just here, because we just got back from Cape Cod, and it was there too. Things are still closed. Businesses are suffering. You know, families are suffering. People have died. And to me, I feel like the masking and the protocols we had in place saved a lot of more shutdown. And it might have saved some of us. Yes, children weren't the ones that this went after, it went after adults. But we didn't know much about this virus then, and we're learning more and more every day. Now there's a new virus that is on our horizon. It's here, Delta. And our numbers here are very low. We don't have that. I just finished my summer rec program here in the school, and we followed school protocols because we were using the school building. Children came in when they were inside, and when they were in indoor stations, they masked. However, when they got to their seats, they unmasked. We had a couple of kids complain, but the majority of them took it very well, as they did the school year. Yes, the masks got dirty, but I always went out and bought more, or went to the nurse and got a clean mask for any child that needed it. It was, you know, as we come out of this, and now there's this Delta virus that's upon us, I think we need to be careful, and I think we need to look at protocols again, and maybe we can come up with something that is okay for everyone concerned, for everyone's beliefs, for all families. I'm hoping that we can. And excuse me, can I talk? Can I just say it? I mean, can I just talk? If you want us to talk, then you're gonna turn me. I listen to you and I respectfully listen to you and I love your ideas and I love what you have to say. Thoughts are being put together very well. And I understand, these are your kids. I have children that have gone to the school district. I have a granddaughter that's here now. I get it, I do. But the other thing I know is this virus. I don't know it, and I don't know what it will do. And I don't want to take the chance with my granddaughter or with any child that I've worked so hard for 21 years to work with in the school and educate. Yes, I miss the smiles, but toward the end of the year, we were able to let them take the masks off outside. And so, yes, we saw those smiles. As far as my unit goes, yeah, we were afraid to come to school. We hated this every day, but we did it. We did it because it kept us safe. It kept the kids safe. And when there was an outbreak in a class, and I went down that hall, oh, they're on quarantine. Thank God it didn't go further than the case that was in the class. That happened. I saw that happen all year. I don't know how it works in the middle school or high school, but every time we got a COVID report from Mr. Nacarado, it was like, where is it now? It was nerve-wracking, but the masking, the protocols, the hand sanitizing, it kept things at bay. And I went through something else this year. My mom is 91 and she's in a nursing home. She's in a nursing home up in Teresian House, and she did get COVID. And it was really horrible. It was a 4-week, almost a month and a half that she was in the COVID ward. And now this Delta virus again is revisiting Teresian House. And in the last 3 weeks, there are 5 cases there. And it's people bringing it in. It's the staff, because those poor patients aren't going anywhere. So we mask, and I mask, and my family masks. We mask for my mom. We mask for my granddaughter. We mask for your children. I won't go near a child without a mask on. I won't, because I respect children and I respect your child. And I would never want to be the reason a child gets sick, ever. That's my thoughts on it. You have quite a job ahead of you. I appreciate all the work you do in good times and bad, and these are certainly struggling and challenging times for the board and for our community. I just wish we'd come together, because we are a community of people that used to be able to come together and not have this animosity. I don't have animosity in my heart for anyone that has a different opinion of me. I have friends that don't agree with me and I don't agree with them, but we're still friends because we learn to get along. And I think when it comes to kids, and that's our job, and that's our business, and that's our family, we just learn as adults to just get along. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the chance to voice my concern yet again. This is the 3rd meeting in a row I spoke, so I feel as if at this point I'd probably offer to treat you all to dinner or something. I typically don't prefer to sit in the back or remotely or just listen to remain abreast of the ongoings within the district. However, our school has been challenged with addressing some extremely important situations, and I feel it even more important to share my thoughts and concerns as a parent and a community member. Some of these topics need to be addressed immediately: middle school principal, COVID-19 safety protocols. Some topics I question the timing of, Mascot regrouping. One would think that in the middle of a global pandemic, when already faced with multiple controversial issues needing to be addressed, our school districts especially would be looking for ways to pull the community together, not forcing topics that are emergent nature and will inevitably divide us. Tonight, I'd like to discuss the masking of our children. The board is faced with an extremely challenging situation.
one that regardless of the decision that you will make, not everyone will be satisfied with. That said, I'd like to share a situation I was faced with last school year at CA. We received the reopening plans this year, which included desk separation, health screenings, mask breaks, etc. I felt confident that my children were safe returning to school. I made the decision to send all 3 of my kids back with the information I was provided. Very soon after school started, I realized that one thing that was not universal in the district was mask breaks. In fact, 2 of my kids were coming home reporting they were receiving very few mask breaks, if any at all. I drafted a few emails, but my kids begged me not to send them because they didn't want me to be the embarrassing mom, and they didn't want to be singled out for breathing problems. I was also confident there were some kinks to be worked out in the beginning, so I let it go. I would ask my kids periodically how mask breaks were going. I started noticing a trend of it's fine, and they would quickly move on to other topics. I suppose not too far off from the average conversation with your average teenager, so again, I let it go. Fast forward to the June board meeting that took place in the middle school cafeteria. If you remember correctly, board members and attendees were complaining about how cold the room was. In fact, many stated they were having trouble keeping focus and concentrating because the room was so cold. Now let's change the climate a bit. While I don't know the exact temperature of an average classroom on a 100-degree day, I imagine it's hot and maybe a stretch, but I'm sure we could closely compare it to that of a brick oven, just a brick. My understanding is that the cafeteria is one of the few rooms in a school with in our school with air conditioning. I imagine the classroom temperature is close to 100 degrees, maybe hotter, maybe not as hot. I see when I checked, it was about 70 degrees outside and people are fanning themselves. I've seen people having to take mask breaks. It's hot and it's not even as hot as it could be on a normal average day in September, July, June, wherever we are. Now don't open any windows, don't turn any fans on because the state won't allow you, and put a mask on and sit there for 2+ hours. And when you try to pull your mask on and take a drink, you're yelled at and instructed to put your mask back on. And let's hope you didn't forget your bottle of water that day, because when you finally are released from that classroom, you're not allowed to use the water fountains either because the state won't allow you to do that either. We were all grown adults in that room, cold. How do you think a child feels suffocating in a classroom, trying to breathe through a mask that was inevitably drenched with sweat and saliva? I think we can all be confident in saying that it's nearly impossible to concentrate or focus on anything in that situation. If it's that hard for you to imagine what it's like, then let's perhaps hold the next board meeting in one of those very same rooms with masks on. I also realize we will soon be in the winter months and it won't be nearly as hot outside. That being said, I'm not sure about anyone else's kids, but my kids, even in the winter months, come home and report that the classrooms are very warm year-round. I'm sure I could reference almost every medical book written, but considering when determining safety protocols, we often look to the CDC for guidance. So I'll reference the CDC's environmental infection control guidelines for this specific situation. If you review it, you will find over and over again that a warm, wet environment is a breeding ground for bacteria. I would challenge you to find a single mask in a hot classroom that is not saturated. Does anyone know what the long-term effects of this is on our children? I certainly don't know either, but I can share an experience of a short-term effect. My son suffers from migraines. It's in all of his medical records, including the ones here at CA. We've narrowed down one of his triggers to dehydration. Of course, I was unaware that he was being denied a few mask breaks to allow for a drink. So when he came home from school vomiting, I'm sorry, let me start over. Of course, I was not aware that he was being denied a few drinks for mask breaks to allow for a break. So when he came home from school vomiting, slowly the story unraveled. By the time I realized his migraine was a result from dehydration, it was too late. I couldn't cut fluids in him because he would just continue to vomit. He was also vomiting the medications to help abort the migraine. This is not atypical for him when he suffers a severe migraine. My child had such a migraine, he spent the next few days in a dark room with a cold washcloth over his head in severe pain, vomiting, unable to eat or drink. He, of course, had to be kept home. He missed quite a few sporting events, family functions. He was essentially quarantined, didn't have COVID, all because he was sitting in a hot, stifling room for hours, day after day, being denied the right to take a mask break on numerous occasions to allow a drink of water. Could he have gone to the nurse's office to get a drink? I'm sure he could have, but my kids aren't the ones to challenge the system, so he sat there and did what he was told. I share this story with you because I realize that you'll be establishing and agreeing to these safety protocols, and I ask you, when you get to the masking section, please don't feel comfortable and confident in your decision when you see that our school is kind enough to offer mask breaks. I can 100% assure you mask breaks are not being allowed in all the classrooms here at CA. I urge you to please allow parents to make the best decision for their children. I understand not all circumstances are the same. Creating a one-size-fits-all policy is not appropriate in this situation. It is not the school or state to decide what is best for my children. I just ask that whatever decision you make, please consider all situations and do your best to make it the fairest decision for all. Thank you.
Sure, the writing, is it should press them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna just start off by saying that normally I don't do this and I don't really complain, but with numerous challenges that we're facing, I felt compelled to do so. So to the CA Board of Education, I am a parent with 2 children in the Coxsackie-Athens School District. One's in 1st grade and one is in 7th grade. I have several concerns in regard to the mascot change, reconfiguration, and the need for a middle school principal, as I didn't know until now that was in the works. So I'll start off by saying that there was no reason to change the mascot and that you did not listen to what the community had to say, as majority supported to keep the mascot as is. I watched the video of the meeting and the input by others, and I can say I was appalled by what I saw. The meeting started early, calling on the people who supported the mascot change to speak. The one individual who opposed it and questioned this was loudly told, "You're out of time." His mic was muted when he was trying to speak. The meeting ended early without any further input or concerns from the community. If you did not sign up to speak, even though some people who did sign up to speak were not there, in the end, you still went against what the community wanted and changed it anyway. The next issue I would like to speak about is reconfiguration. I do not support reconfiguration, and neither does the community. I do not want my child on a bus for 50+ minutes with no bus monitor, on the bus with older children subjected to inappropriate language and bullying. Not to mention they would be starting the school day earlier as well. Not only would classroom sizes increase, but this would also negatively impact students who need the one-on-one with their teachers, and that would be lost with the larger classroom sizes. A primary building where class sizes are small are important for our children to learn the foundational skills needed to be successful in the future. This should be a community-driven decision, not just what the board members and superintendent want. We, the parents, taxpayers, community members should have a say in this matter. I keep hearing how it's the teachers that want this, but I only saw a few give their input, and what I heard from their input is how it would be beneficial to them. Nothing about how it would be beneficial to the students. I want to hear from all the teachers, not just the select few that the superintendent selected. The children have been through enough with this pandemic. I do not need added stress with more change. The last issue I would like to address is not having a middle school principal. I cannot believe that I myself and other numerous parents would have to address this concern. The middle school needs a principal, period. Not sharing principals and increasing the workload on others. With Mr. Nacarado now gone, what's the plan? Well, you kind of told us what the plan was. I didn't know that. I already did my letter. I was baffled to read in our local newspaper that a board member did not find this issue concerning and that only 2 parents raised concern over this. I find it concerning. Is that how our elected board members are thinking? Instead of worrying about establishing a committee about changing our mascot and reconfiguring our school that most were not in favor of, look at the letters and petitions signed by the people of the community. Instead, the superintendent and board should have established a committee to have a principal in place by fall. There was more than enough time, and have safely reopened in the fall with the pandemic coming back, targeting children and keeping parents informed. Their priorities are questionable, and I have lost faith in the board members and superintendent's ability to do right by the people of the community. Instead of trying to divide, cancel, and change everything and censor people you don't agree with, we should be working together to do what's best for our children and better our community. The superintendent should resign if he's not willing to be transparent with the community and be truthful in his statements. The board members need to realize they are elected officials who should be voting on the way the community wants you to vote by giving you their input, not the way the superintendent or anyone else wants you to vote.
I am asking the board to do the right thing by the people. We are the ones who elected you, and we, the taxpayers, community members, and parents should be able to vote on these important issues that directly impact us and our families. I feel if the board members are unwilling or unable to do this, then they should resign as well. I thank you for your time, and I'd like to submit this in.
So before I start, Mr. Squire, I know you made reference to what's going on in the South. There were between 5,000 and 8,000 students that were sent home to quarantine. Those students haven't even showed a positive COVID test. They aren't required to show a positive COVID test. So I really don't think that's something that we should put in correlation with what's going on here. I respect all of the teachers, I respect our community, everything that they did last year. I'm just very passionate about what's going on right now, and I feel the way I feel. I'm tired and I'm fed up and I'm tired of the absolute fear mongering that is being forced upon our children. They keep saying follow the science. Well, that is what I intend on doing. I have seen zero scientific data that supports the muzzling of our children. I have, however, seen study after study that shows just how harmful and unnecessary it is for children to be masked. As time allows me, I will state some of these facts. First and foremost, I would like to state that for the record, my children will not attend this school year masked. It is illegal, immoral, and I will not allow them to be lab rats to determine a year from now just how harmful in fact that was. What is not safe is hindering an immune system that God gave them to fight off viruses. An immune system that cannot do its job unless it's allowed to. When flu season rolls around and masks are off, they're going to be far more susceptible to a virus that kills more children than COVID, the flu. Delta variant is nothing more than what every virus has done since the beginning of time. It mutates to become more transmittable while being less severe. These cloth masks, and this is the biggest thing to me, they're far too porous to even prevent the 0.06 aerosols of SARS-CoV RNA. They're useless. It literally goes through. You can get it through your eyeballs if that's the case, which they actually said that in the beginning, but that one way. The government does not own or control our children, and the school system is here only to educate them, not to decide what is best for them medically. To any teacher that fears our children's beautiful, unmasked faces, full of expression, I will say with conviction that you are unfit to educate our youth. Then with the utmost of confidence, you should be able to sign an agreement written by parents stating that should any adverse reaction occur due to prolonged mask wearing, you yourselves will be held accountable. If you cannot do that, then I guess you are not truly being transparent and scientific. A study by the Journal of American Medical Association measured carbon dioxide levels in children ages 6 to 17 while wearing masks. Normal carbon dioxide is 400 parts per million. Anything above 2,000 parts per million is unacceptable. The reports measured an average of 13,120 to 13,900 parts per million of carbon dioxide, 6 times higher than the unsafe threshold. A study of schools was done that were 30% in person with staff showed students in masked schools had a 21% higher rate than students in schools with no masks. Staff case rate was 23% higher in those schools. And one more that I didn't write enough on, but it was also a study in Hong Kong and Singapore, where they did a study on people who had the flu. They masked them inside their home, they unmasked them inside a home. The people that had the flu inside of the masked home showed more severe symptoms than the people in the unmasked, because they're literally holding it and breathing it in 24/7. That's all it is.
carbon dioxide.
Okay, so we're just, I wanted to let people know that some of your emails made it to, some of you wrote emails to us and others who could not come tonight did. But we got maybe 30 different correspondence, and please keep that coming. Just a quick summary, so you know, like Heather Ross wrote to us about her concerns about middle school principal. Kathy Harder wrote to us about her concerns about changing the mascot. Kimberly Tuckwell wrote concerns about can we record the meetings?
Can you speak up some, please?
Yes, but can we record the meetings? Daniel Bratt wrote about the middle school principal plan. Allison Phoenix about the middle school principal plan. Shane Iannoni about the middle school. Abby Martin about the middle school. Heather Ross about the middle school. Stephanie Sitzer about masks, against wearing masks in school. Emily Crimmins wrote in support of masking in school. Casey McCarthy wrote in support of masking in schools. Abby Martin wrote in support of mask wearing in schools. Michelle McElroy wrote in support of kids masking in schools. Carrie Taylor wrote in support of kids masking in schools. Elizabeth Conrad wrote in support of kids masking in school. Brad Hutton wrote in support of kids continuing to mask in school. We have a number this afternoon. Robin Wickham Drobner had a bunch of questions that we'll try to get back to her on a number of different areas, number of different ideas. Kristen, we got your email, Ben Alvin. Melissa Seberg, Spressa, Heather Roberg, got an email from her teacher in support of masking in schools. Didn't even get a chance to write my note about some of them. Looks like Elizabeth Conrad always said that. In support of masking in schools. Kimberly Karpakul wrote again in support of mask requirement at CA.
Excuse me, could you repeat that name and that email heading that you're claiming?
Kimberly Karpakul.
Cratchwell, and it says masking requirement here, but it doesn't show what her position is. We've done that numerous times.
Well, I'm just trying to summarize because.
No, you're summarizing with a skewed perspective. You're saying,
Well, I'm trying to.
and I'm reading along with you, and it doesn't fit it.
I'm definitely trying not to do that.
It doesn't say it, why are you
If
saying
it doesn't say it, don't read it the way
Okay.
it's not written, unless you're gonna revise that and make it available to the public. And the problem is you guys are not transparent and you're pushing us all to the point of really putting ourselves out of character here. And this is frustrating because we've all sat here in the heat and listening to everybody, and we've all spoke our piece, and you continuously, you, Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Try to curve the narrative in a direction that's more favorable towards whatever position the top administrators of the schools carry. And that's BS. And we're not going to tolerate it. We're going to hold every single one of you accountable.
All right.
Every single one of you. So you better start being transparent, and you better start making these things clear and put packets together that are comprehensive for this community to understand and quit smoking mirrors crap.
What happens in My Body, My Choice?
But we're out of, I'm just trying to summarize the.
Then summarize the
What happens in My Body, My Choice?
Summarize it with the times and not have a recording that the public will see. Because you're gonna hear my voice too.
Yeah. Okay.
You only have 3 on here that are supporting masks. 3. Listen.
Okay, well, then I just.
And you said.
They make it available on the website so we can decide for ourselves.
All right.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on from the public input section. We're just gonna move into committee reports.
Yeah, stop lying.
Sure, and it's very warm, but we're all trying to do what we can to communicate and dialogue together and try to come up with a consensus.
Yeah, but if you fabricate things, that's
Well,
the dialogue.
definitely not trying to do that. So you're welcome to stay and listen to our rest of our meeting. We have committee reports from the budget planning committee that met this evening. Anybody report on that?
Same shit.
So the budget committee had their first meeting tonight. And we discussed what the budget committee will be focusing on, the things that were discussed.
Could I just excuse us?
Thank you. We discussed the particular things about the budget that the budget committee would be able to work on as a group, working on more details involved in the budget, understanding them and bringing that information to the board. So again, this was our first meeting. This committee was just formed tonight and will be following up as we move through the process.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we have the liaison committee report.
We want to provide an update to the Board of Ed on the process we've taken so far for Mascot and where we are going to continue from here. The rebranding committee has been meeting bi-weekly to discuss the mascot and other items surrounding the rebranding. The committee is made up of community members, staff, students, and the liaison committee. We created a list of criteria for the new mascot to help guide us in the search process. This list of criteria was located on the nomination form. We accepted nominations from the 16th of July to August 7th. The committee then met and using that criteria created a first round vote that was open from August 11th to August 18th, which was yesterday. The committee is going to meet to look at the data and decide on a final vote ballot. This final ballot will go live from September 13th to September 20th. There will be drop boxes at the Coxsackie Elementary and EJA Elementary for community members that do not have access to technology. We're getting the word out about the vote with flyers around town, the robotext, Facebook, the website. It was just put in the newspaper, and we're hopeful that the Newcastle channel 17, is that the PSA, will post that for us as well. If someone is not able to get to a Dropbox or does not have access to it online, they may request a ballot be mailed to them by calling Michelle. The Board of Ed is hoping to have a recommendation. The committee is hoping to have a recommendation to the Board of Ed for a new mascot in October. We will then work with the graphics team to come up with a graphic that matches that mascot and to completely rebrand the district. This is still a phase out process, which is one of the things that the rebranding committee has been working on and looking into as well. And I know we talked about how our company that does our online stuff is willing to do all of that graphics and the behind the scenes work for us for free.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Sorry. Am I allowed to ask a question?
We have to refer to.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I didn't know when to talk to you.
Yeah. What do you need?
So what we're voting on, those names are already set. We're not gonna wait on the students to have to say.
Oh, I
So they'll have to say when it comes time to vote on those, what, 9, 12 different names.
They have been filling out nominations and
the students have.
yes, and voting, it's because it showed their emails have been required, so their emails show up.
for when they.
Okay, so it wasn't just the adults. that-
No, it has been sent out to everyone. It went to their emails. A lot of them have them on their devices. A lot of the parents have been, letting their kids sign in. Like I signed in, typed in my daughter's email and I had her vote, for what she wanted for the second person. Yeah, yep.
What about when you guys remove Amy and did you guys put that much effort into that?
No, they didn't.
Mail out ballots and all that?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Okay,
They didn't listen to the.
any questions for Tara? For the committee?
The names that were presented, were there any other names? Or those were the-
There were other names, but the rebranding committee had gone through and a lot of them didn't meet the criteria that was posted on the nomination one.
Indians had a lot more.
Can we have a comprehensive report on why those names didn't meet the criteria? Is that something that could be available for the website? Or in an
Well,
email?
right now, Mr. Feeling, we're just hearing from Tara about her committee report. Then you're.
Understood.
Tara, isn't it true that the committee posted the criteria at the top of that survey?
It was on
That,
the
that,
survey.
that
It was
search
on
for
ballot
nominations, it
boxes.
was clearly listed.
It was on the website.
I got that, but when you guys were removing it, I didn't get any email or any information. My brother pays taxes on 4 properties in this village and he didn't get any information on it.
Couple of things, regarding my question. Could the board get access to all that information at some point? Okay, that's my first request. My second request is that, if the board, if the rebranding committee could postpone the election of the mascot to give students more of a chance to weigh in when they get back to school. If they would give that some consideration.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because I will tell you that Tristan doesn't have access to his CA account because he doesn't have it on his phone. So, and I can't access my CA email from my computer either. So I don't know that all the children that have gotten an email have actually got their emails over the summer. So just to postpone it so that they have a say in September would be awesome.
So do you mean, just to clarify, so right now we are in the first round of voting. And in September, all of the students will vote in school on the final, a final 3.
No, Tara
So,
said.
yes, yeah, no, but I think that am I,
Yeah,
Tara,
no,
do you
the-
hear what I hear?
The
Yeah.
rebranding committee talked about waiting till all the students have their devices, so we didn't want to do that first week, but stopping class one day and having all of the kids vote.
I
on
thought you
that.
said that you logged into your daughter's account and voted for her.
I did it with the Google form.
I think I hear
First
the,
round.
I think, so there's 2 rounds. So 14, we're narrowing it down now with round 1. So Bart, do you mean backing up to round 1 and waiting until school starts to have all of the students vote on round 1?
Yes.
Okay, that clarifies it. I think that's something we can discuss on Monday at our next committee meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, because I know it's Google Forms, that's what it's called, right? We can make it so that there's a box that you can check that you have to have a Coxsackie-Athens Central School District email, so we can create a Google form specifically for the students for a vote, which is what we're doing for the final round. There will be one that they will all be able to sign on to their device and use their email. And it makes it so that they vote once and they all can get on it, kind of a.
That's the final round.
I guess I just misunderstood, and that's it. Just, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just thought the kids were going to be having a say into the actual, like, brainstorm of potential new mascots.
So that's already been done, so that's, they're not gonna have to say on that, they're just gonna have to vote on what you guys decided, broke it all down.
We did have kids on the committee too.
Well, I think I just suggested that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
committee's gonna relook at that.
Right.
and Hopefully, change course.
So, and then to address what you just said, the nomination, the original nominations, students did have the opportunity, but I can see how it might be viewed that they didn't all have an equal opportunity. I understand what you're saying, but we could report on numbers of student submissions. We had a lot of nominations from students. And that's broken down in our data, correct? We'll have to talk about that at our meeting.
I don't know it off the top of.
No, I didn't ask if you knew it, but we do have that number available to us. Student nominations, yes?
Not for the
Or no?
nominations.
Not for the nominations, it's not
No,
broken
we
down.
did that, unanimous.
What's that?
Unanimously.
No, we didn't attach emails on the nominations.
Not for the nominations, we wanted that to just be unanimous, allow people to put their. Anonymous.
Anonymous, yes.
Sorry, it is getting late, I'm usually in bed by now. Yes, so we did it that way so that people could just submit whatever nomination choice that they wanted without having, their email attached to it, but for the first round vote, we wanted it to be one per person, so we attached an email for the first round. To go from there, but-
Okay, good. Thank you. Superintendent updates. Back to the recruitment form.
So at your table, there should be a packet that says summer forums on future grade groupings. So this is all the written feedback that we received during the 3 summer forums. So it's a combination of comments and questions. If there were questions, we tried to answer them. Those would be the stars. For the parts of it, so you have italicized there. So again, it's a combination of all 3 clustered in together. So this is right now, just for your information. Just want to get this to you. This has been posted on the website along with the recording of the August 16th forum. That's on the website as well. Great groupings page there. So great groupings on the homepage of the website. You go down to the spotlight, you're going to see something that says grade grouping. You can click on that. It'll take you right to the page. It's also on the academics. So it's just for information for tonight. So the board can kind of cruise through it. For that. One of the couple suggestions that came out, just in general, and I think you mentioned a little bit, is to have a better way of saying it, a community conversation with the board on this stuff. So basically a one topic evening with the board on grade grouping. I was asked by several of the participants. So that's something that is scheduled. And again, to make it such like they will report it as well. For that. So,
Question. Randy, was our transportation director available for the summer forum?
he was at all 3 of them. Yeah.
Use of this.
So this is, I don't know from the previous meeting, I don't know which one or once. So I know it was a conversation about email and board members. So this is not a conversation with the board, but should be public. Right now, we have a Board of Education at cacsd.org. So anybody can email that email. And what happens is when somebody emails it, it also forwards it to the district clerk. So Michelle gets an email from whoever sent the email for that, and then it ends up on your agenda from there. So that's how it's working right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, I believe we can also make that go to all your emails as well.
School district email.
Your school, I'm sorry, to your school. So if each of you has a school district email, right, so we can make it all go to your school district email as well. is an option. in there. So if somebody sends it all nine plus Michelle's clerk, we get it, we could email at the same time. But I'm just throwing it out there, it's a little ask that's possible, so I just want to put that out there. Now, I know there's other discussions. Has a CACS email account.
I know my concern was like whether we were getting all of them, and then today, we had talked about it last meeting, and today I had gotten another email from a community member, which I got one at the beginning of August, and so I had sent an email to the clerk asking why the one wasn't on the minutes yet for our agenda, and it was in the spam folder, so.
The one, I say, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but it comes, let's say Tara Bacher sends an email to the Board of Education, so then it's going to come into your inboxes, and Michelle is from Tara Bacher. And so I think that's what happened, right? That whoever this person was, for whatever reason, it got shot in spam. Like, I don't think that's above my pay grade as to why that happened.
But I just feel more comfortable maybe just for myself if board members are also getting it, so that if something like that happens, like with today, I was able to email Michelle and say, hey, I've received 2 emails by the same person at 2 different times this month. Can we make sure that they get on the agenda? And all I sent back to the person was, thank you for your email. We will make sure that the entire board receives these. Thank you for writing to us. Generic, I know we talked about having like a generic response go out to people so that they know that we're receiving their emails and we're not ignoring them, but also stating that we can't respond to them and say, we're going to do all these things for you that you're emailing us.
So we want to figure out a way that we can not, we don't think we want it auto done, because that doesn't necessarily mean we've seen it yet. Right, we want to, for a better way, have a person, a human, be able to say, we received your email and we're part of the board's next agenda. Or at least we received the next agenda. Is that what I'm hearing?
Some sort of
Yes, I know.
understanding that they.
Right, they received it. Thank you for your email. The board will receive it or acknowledge it at the next meeting. Nobody can follow that.
And reply to all so that we all see that acknowledgement.
Okay.
So that would be the board clerk responding back and hitting off. Okay, so we'll all get the emails because we all have our individual email addresses.
We can set that up.
Okay, perfect.
Your CAC.
Yes,
You can't send it to your email.
Our school email addresses.
We just need to be able to.
And
access
Michelle,
them. No, we just need to be able to access them, the
Right.
school email.
and Michelle will do our response for us and reply all.
Right,
So we all
perfect.
see it.
We'll do a little tech training next meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
Surprise, Karen.
No, I just.
Well, no, we do have access. It was
I haven't
shared.
checked.
Mhm.
Okay.
It was shared. We just need to change our password.
That's fine. I'll
Obviously,
search.
offer myself up, I'm in before 6:30 for whoever wants to. I'm in by 6:30, I'd be happy to help
Oh,
anybody.
yeah,
I
no.
provide
If you
advice.
just send me the link that I can set up by, or have.
It would be together.
Okay.
It's just, depending on if it's your phone or your
Yeah,
laptop,
fine.
I'd be more than happy to help you.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll keep the Board of Education. That's to stop people from emailing you individually, so we'll keep the Board of Education at CACSD. We'll set it up so all of you should get it as well. The same, Michelle will get it at the same time. And then Michelle, when she gets it, we'll just reply all. We'll see if that works. We'll figure it out so you know you're getting a reply.
Yeah.
And then just thank you for both of them now.
Yeah, so we could do a test. We could send a test to make sure that it is working. I heard you say it should, but we can do a test. We can do a test to make sure that it works.
All set. We'll send you an email for testing and then we'll.
Okay.
Okay. Building highlights, the midsummer updates. Want to give that to us, Jim, or
I'll
what?
speak quickly for
Okay.
the elementary schools. We wrapped up our summer school. It was very successful. This week, we had kinder camp. We had 24 kindergartens, incoming kindergarten students come to the building. They got a tour, they did some engaging activities. It was very well received. So we really hope to be able to do that again in the future. Make that kind of a recurring thing for incoming kindergartners. And both elementary schools had our gyms resurfaced, and all the original mats that were around the walls were removed and replaced. So it looks fantastic.
Mr. Martino, I'm sorry, may I ask that question? So how many students attended kinder camp?
At both buildings, 12 each.
12 each? And that was Monday through Thursday
Yes.
for a morning session?
That is 12.
Okay,
Well,
Karen, did you wanna?
I got my middle school hat on right now. So we actually just had some tours today for our first graders that were remote learners last year that are coming back. So that was a great opportunity to get those kids in and to see our buildings. But we do have our fifth graders are going to have their middle school tours next week. And Dr. Mercer and I have been working with the counselors on scheduling and completing the middle school schedule and all the assignments and all things middle school.
Handbooks.
Handbooks. So we'll be ready for opening day.
When will schedules be
Everything
posted to
goes
each?
out on, well, the mailing goes out on August 25th. The portal will open that day.
On the 25th,
25th.
it's available.
27th. Parent portal. The parent portal is the 27th, and then the transportation tag will be ready on September 2nd. I apologize, I ran prior. 25th, the school parent portal open, but the email to access the portal if someone's not in it yet is the 27th. So all of our new families will be the 27th to access. They'll be receiving an email of how to access, but all of our families that are already in the system, the 25th, it will be posted as well as in the mailing.
Quick question, I'm sorry. I have a fifth grader coming in. I didn't know anything about school tours. I didn't know.
That was posted on the website.
Okay.
As well as an email blast went out to all the families for a midsummer update that I put out in July.
Okay.
I don't know if you received that, it was in there.
Last time I remember the email said one, but I'll have to look in. Okay.
Yep, and it's on the website as well. So the date is next Thursday. It's on the website right now, so it's the 25th, yes.
Okay.
It's on the 25th, and there's sign up or self-guided tours.
Okay.
I've been working with Karen on all things middle school and also getting the high school all set. We've got, I think all the lighting's done. It looks like all the lighting's done. Somebody will correct me if the lighting's not all done, but I think it's all done. Heaters are in place. We're getting ready to open up. So the high school, pay no attention in the 2 weeks before it's open. It looks worse than it is. It'll all be ready. Yeah, so we're just same thing, finalizing handbooks. Our mailing goes out next week, portal opens. With the high school, there's always, sometimes people freak out a little bit when they see their schedule. The counselors are still making some changes to balance classes and account for summer school credits that students earned, but our students are pretty flexible and they get it. And this year we are adding a letter from the counselors to kind of explain the schedule because it is a little bit more complicated than it's been in the past because it's blocks, but we also broke up some blocks to be shorter, so their schedules, they'll probably look at it and say, what's a flex class? It's a shorter class. But we're ready. I'm glad we've got 2 more weeks, 2.5 more weeks, but we're ready.
Thank you. School services, school tax 1.
Yes, I believe you should have the original tax number and before the release to sign here. The tax levy was actually approved by the board in July, and this is the culmination of that. So please let me know if you don't have that document to sign in the packet.
Okay.
It needs to be circulated to all board members.
I look for it. Well, do you want to do your
Sure.
thing, man?
So I was gonna offer 2 options. I can either present it or make a video for you guys, because I know it's getting late. I don't mind either way. And then after the video is reviewed by you folks, I can publish it on the website or the community to see as well. It's a video on how tax rates are made. I know that's why everybody came here tonight. Tax rates and Mascot are awesome. So, presentation, what video, what we got?
Video?
Video, all right. I will make a video in a closet all by myself.
I'm so sorry.
Thank
you, Ryan.
We'll let you do that.
What's that?
We'll let you do that, right?
We want to test out your technology skills, so go for it.
And your
I
camera.
got this.
You do, I know you do.
So I will have a video made for you guys and emailed to you by tomorrow.
And thank you for your consideration. Carrie, you have special.
Jim already touched on it a little bit, just to give you a little bit more information on our summer school. So we were able to have a more robust summer school this year. We were very. So we were able to have a more robust summer school this year. We had 188 students participate. So we had students from coming into kindergarten all the way up to high school. So we offered from coming into kindergarten up to 8th grade, remedial type classes, just to work on some skill development for students who need a little bit more of a boost over the summer. We also offered classes for credit. We offered credit recovery classes for students who needed that. And it was well attended, and Mr. Martino was our summer school principal. So thank you, Mr. Martino, for doing an awesome job. So summer school went very well. Any questions on summer school? My next area for update is the pre-K update. So we've been in conversation back and forth with the state about the requirements in terms of the 120,000 that we were allotted for a pre-K program, what we can do with it, what were the requirements that we needed to do with it. So it is a kind of use it or lose it scenario. So that was thing 1. There is, I don't know what you mentioned earlier, a 10% requirement that we have to work with a community-based organization, an eligible community-based organization. For 10% of it, we get a per pupil amount, and it is based on how long the students are in school for. So for example, if you start a program in January, you don't get all 120 this year, you would only get half of that, which would be the 60,000 for 18 students for 1 full classroom. But you would still have access to the 120,000 starting next September if we wanted to offer a full year program. So it is prorated based on how many days in the course of a year a program is run. It needs to be a minimum of 5 hours. There'll be probably something I'm forgetting to say in terms of the requirements, but I'll probably come back around to. So in terms of the money, the proposals just opened up at the beginning of August. So I haven't actually put the proposal into the state yet. I have until the end of the month. So we're working out a few details. So for the community-based organization, we've just finished an RFP. The lawyers have just taken a look at it. So the request for proposal needs to go out to all eligible community-based organizations. We opted to do 2 different types of RFPs. RFP number 1 is if we are going to use our community-based organization allotment to buy a slot in somebody's off-site program.
The second RFP is if we are going to have somebody come on site to provide that service, and we would buy slots in an on-site program, because it's the way the RFPs are worded. If it's on our facility, it's one type of wording. If it's off our campus, it's a different type of wording. So we need to see kind of how many people are going to apply for the pre-K program, because obviously we will put kids into our program first, and then we'll see how many we have for an overflow. We do have to give that 10%, so we will have to figure that out if we don't have the full 18. But we opened up potential registrations for the pre-K program, like 2 weeks ago. And we're currently at 12 students. We haven't really advertised because we're still working on a few details. And part of that is that RFP. If we go over the 18 students that can fit in the Coxsackie-Athens on-campus program that we're planning to offer with the current staff member, then we do have to do a lottery. So what most of the other school districts in researching this do is, if they're over the 18 and they have to do a lottery, they take the first number of students up to that 10% allotment that they have to give to a community-based organization. And those students go for free to that community-based organizations program, either on campus or off-site. And then they are offering up spots then to students in the lottery. If there's still more kids who didn't get in, the community-based organization would provide slots for students, but it would be, parents would have to pay for those additional slots. Does that make sense?
Can we use any of the America Cares money for any of this?
We can supplement if we choose to do that. That's some of the details we haven't had to put in the, we call that the ARP, I guess, or money. So that's something that we can discuss. There's also a secondary piece, because it couldn't be confusing enough, that they have opened up competitive grants for pre-K. So we have the opportunity to apply for the competitive money. We probably wouldn't know if we got that or not till the end of October, beginning of November. But that would be additional money if we wanted to attempt to offer an additional on-site program. It would still have the competitive money, it would additionally have that 10% that can only be used to be given to a community-based organization for instruction. So we can't use it to do before or after school programming. We can't use it for professional development. It has to be the community-based organization providing some type of instruction to our students. So with those parameters, what we've done now is we've put out the possibility to register, so we can start seeing what the interest will be. In terms of transportation, we kind of need to see who's going to register and where the kids live. And if we end up having to do a lottery, we'll have to wait till the lottery is over so we can figure out exactly where the kids live to see if there's a possibility of running a separate bus. We also have the option of telling parents that it's a self-transport, and we have the option of putting the kids on the bus with the other elementary students. So the transportation hasn't been 100% decided yet. We'll kind of take a look at that when we know who are the kids that we're looking at for the program. In terms of where the program is going to be located, obviously EJ Arthur is where we have space. We do have a community-based organization offering pre-K out of EJA right now. They would obviously be welcome to apply with the RFP. They currently bring their own equipment for the playground. So if they were the successful ones, they would have the equipment already there that obviously our internal class could use. As I said, we put out the 2 different RFPs. So if we have another organization that comes in, let's say the one that's there doesn't get it, we choose a different one. I don't know how many people will be interested in applying for our RFP. They would again have to bring one of the parts that they have to put in the RFP is, do they have the materials? What does their facility look like? Things of that nature. We are talking about for our own internal classroom, the first thing we're looking for is obviously, do we have any kindergarten furniture that would be appropriate for a pre-K, to look and see if we can use that first. But in the absence of being able to do that, looking back at that ARP money to see if there is a possibility to use some of that money, if there are additional furnishings or things that we feel that we need to have for the program.
The 10%, is that a mandated fix? You can't go above that.
You can go above that. So you can't go below it. You have to give them at least 10%. Some school districts opted to just give all the money to a community-based organization and not have the program on site at all. So that is an option. I think in conversations with our teachers, the feeling was having it in-house as much as possible, because we do have the space. I think a lot of districts who do that because they don't have the space to put it. But we do have the space to have it in-house and have it be one of our teachers would be terrific.
So advanced therapies, that's the name of the preschool that rents space.
Yes.
At EJA. They are scheduled to remain in that same space.
They can remain in the same space. Yes.
You mean they can? What do you mean they can? Are they scheduled to be
Right,
there?
right now, they are scheduled to be there. They are also able to apply for the RFP.
Yeah.
So they could, there's a variety of situations. So they could be the successful person for the RFP, and then they'll stay there with their program, and we'll add our program, and we'll all be working together. They could not be selected for the RFP. It could be a different organization, and they could still be there, and we'd have a different organization and us. Or they could choose to no longer rent from us if they weren't successful. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I just have to, when you put out an RFP, it has to be open to everybody equally. So.
Okay. I'm just looking at the beginning of school being 2 weeks away, so.
They are absolutely planning on being there, and we would like them to stay there. We would not be asking them. Yes, we would not be asking them to leave. I just like to see all my different options that could fall my way in January.
They're set up.
They are set up.
I have a question. Up until now, it's been told to us that we're getting $120,000. Now tonight, we're only getting 60 because it's prorated, which I understand. I personally don't think $60,000 to throw at 18 students is actually enough to retrograde and retrofit our EJA facilities. Because right now you're talking about, well, maybe the kindergarten desks will fit, but maybe they won't. So I just feel like we're just trying to grab up the money, but not doing it well. So I'm just very concerned. And if we can do the $60,000 to an outside facility this year, just so we can get the 120 next year, and perhaps have more money in our budget to make it right, not just done, maybe we need to wait.
And there's also the halftime RTI teacher issue.
Right, that's just my feelings.
But isn't January already set to go anyway? January's already a done deal.
Yeah, I don't think.
No? Oh,
I don't
that was
know.
my assumption. I'm sorry, I thought we voted on that. I thought that was budget vote. And language I didn't see, but. That's big. So
But also, I was
So
thinking it was
January
120, I was also thinking it was $120, or 120,000, not
So-
60.
So, but in
So-
January, all these people that are registering for kindergarten, or pre-K,
They are registering for January 31st.
and that is a
start date
definite go.
In,
no matter
in
what.
Edgewater Art.
I know 2022, we don't know what's happening, but in 2021.
That is our
or
plan.
It's January 2022, that's a definite.
That is
no
our
matter
plan.
what.
Yep.
So any discussion on Jamie's thoughts?
Well, why did the board not know that?
I actually didn't know that it was 60,000, but I could have missed it.
But you knew it was a done deal for January this year, right?
I assume, yes, we had been in the talks about it, but the money issue is different. That was brought to our attention tonight and then re-brought. And I don't know if we ever, like, well, I don't know, we can talk personnel stuff later, right? So. Guess I'm surprised about the money too.
It's huge, it's huge. I just feel like we're just throwing it at it just to open it and to perhaps get the 120 next year. Which, yes, but we also can budget more in to have it done correct.
How difficult is it to access this America Cares money for something like this?
The art money, there's some parameters being put on that money, for learning loss and for before and after school programming, but I think probably make it.
I need to answer some of Jamie's, I mean,
You could.
we have money
Yes.
that we could use to do these things so they can be done by Jamie.
Correct. My personal take is that we have all fall to plan for the opening of a pre-K, and I think it's something that we've talked about as a district for a very long time. And I think think there are definitely some details that still need to be worked out. But my concern with creating a program that we are buying slots is then we have to go to the state and amend the way that we're doing it and wait for another approval process. So it's not as simple as if you go out doing it one way, it is possible to switch, but you have to go through a whole other approval process. I'm quite honestly, I have every intention of putting in for the competitive money to see if we can get additional money.
Is that through the state?
That would be through the state as well, yes. But that is a competitive process. We've gone in on that 3 times before, and we usually lose out to the city, unfortunately.
Right.
But it could be possible.
Can I ask you a question, please? Sorry.
Okay.
If an outside company.
It's just us.
If an outside company wanted to apply, well, to work with you guys, would they have to have a full day program, or could they run their programs the way they have now?
It would have to be a full day program, and it would have to be, in order to be eligible, you have to be licensed by the state of New York. So it would have to be a licensed full day program.
I thought you just said it had to be 5 hours.
Well, 5 hours, that's what they consider full day. Their full day is 5 hours.
To me, a full day means from 8 until 2:33, but this is actually just until like 8 till 1, right?
That would be nice.
9, yeah, not
Okay.
8 for preschool.
Okay, but
Now, will preschool children be required to wear masks? No, I don't require them because by law, rainforest do not have to. So if they come to our district because they're housed in your district, they would have to wear masks.
They would have to probably follow all of our health procedures, I would assume. Correct.
Understood, but I didn't know because it was. You know, 3-year-olds can't ride bikes.
Yes, 3-year-olds in no scenario, kids would have to be transported by their parents if they were under the age of 4, but for the program starting January 31st, because we have to be 4, by the 31st of December, there'd be no 3-year-olds at least this year. But going forward, yes, if they were under the age of 4, it would have to be parent self-transport, because
And
otherwise
then
we
it
have to.
will become December to ride the bus.
Yes.
Whenever they turn age.
You got a room, like, now with those buses, obviously have monitors. How do you break your prepaid buses?
Yeah, right,
Prepaid.
right now, because we haven't figured out what we're gonna do for transition, it's gonna be a separate run. Those will all be questions that we'll decide with that.
Mr. Neighbor said no. At the last 3 meetings.
Yeah, right now, our buses in general do not have monitors on all of them. They have
I didn't know
monitors.
because of babies.
But yes, that would be a conversation. Oh, I do have, I'm like, wait, I have another topic. So then my third topic is just to give you an update. So we have, we're charged by the board to look at what we have for our Indigenous peoples curriculum, what we do to talk about the local history here in Coxsackie and Athens. So we compiled what we currently do from kindergarten up to 12th grade. It's kind of spotty and sporadic, but exists in K through 4. Just needs some streamlining and a little bit more clarity to be specific to the area. It tends to be more general about Native Americans as a whole. Middle school seems to be a gap area, as well as high school. It gets touched on, but not with, with any great depth. So we're currently working on, and we'll spend time through the fall. We're going to shore up what we're doing at the elementary level and be a little bit more deliberate in how we're approaching, talking about the topic of Indigenous peoples, to put in more history of people who live right here. We are also Greg Hughes, so big thank you to him. We'll be spending the fall. He was very involved. We're talking about 10 years ago. There was a push because, and I forget what was being built, but something was being built around here. I'm looking at Leslie, but Leslie's not going to remember either. And there were archaeologists, who came and they found all sorts of arrowheads. So there was a big research project done, and there were a few teachers involved in that, and Greg was one of them. So in the middle school, you'll see there's a case that has some of these artifacts, both Native Americans and early colonists. And he had done a lot of research and pulled some things together back then. Then it was a grant funded thing, and the grant money ran out, so he didn't take it a lot further. But now he'd love the opportunity to take what he had from back then and build a half credit class that we plan to offer in the spring, specifically on the local peoples of Coxsackie and Athens, delving into who lived here, what their life was like prior to the earliest colonists, and then up through the migration of the indigenous peoples to where they currently are. So he's been working on that. We're giving him a lot of free rein for that, but he will definitely give us some information, and I'll present it to you as to what the class is starting to look like as we get further in the fall. We're giving him plenty of time to work on that, and he has some connections. Tracy Watson connected him with somebody that she knows that can share a lot of information on indigenous peoples in the area. So we'll also probably reach out to Heather and see what she can give us for that as well. And we hope the kids love Mr. Hughes, so we hope that it'll be an exciting class offering that the kids will really want to take.
Would spearhead the research, kind of like calling and have them call?
Yeah, I'll be working on that with Greg. Yeah.
Okay.
So Greg has some things, and then Tracy, as I said, gave us another contact, so I'll reach out to that contact. And then I have Heather's contact information, so I'll put Heather in contact with Greg.
Good.
We'll also probably use Heather because she has a second grade curriculum that she had talked about. So she can help a little bit too when I meet with the teachers to kind of shore up what we're doing at the elementary level.
And the ideas of the nature walk and the wall, history wall, where are we going with those?
Well, Greg, actually, we were just talking to him today, so he very much mentioned working closely with Blake Roberg because he's working on the history wall. So actually making part of the work on the history wall part of the class that he's developing. So I think that will be part of it. And then we're talking about for the nature walk, the different things that we could also infuse into there.
With Greg?
Yes.
He's the-
We could also, with that, I could actually see us being able to connect it to some of the things that elementary do as well.
Right.
So that it's not something that waits all the way until high school. We really like to kind of step it up in the different grade
Yes.
levels. And again, all the different grade levels touch on something having to do with indigenous peoples, but it's not deliberate. And
Can that be more of an effort made to look at different grades and how we teach about indigenous peoples in different grades, lower grades?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be K-12.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
As I say, from kindergarten to fourth, probably fifth grade, we will take a look at how to, introduce the topic here, add a little bit more in the next grade, add a little bit more in the next grade, so that there's a basis of knowledge that all the kids
Well,
get.
that's what I wonder about, like indigenous people's curriculum that could be written and we could share. At this grade level, we do this, at this grade level, we do this. So who might, is that your?
That's me.
Hollywood? So when we hear about this, like in October?
Yeah, I'll probably have it outline-ish in
Okay.
October. I think having like a good sized document probably give me to January, but we can definitely have it
Greg
outlined.
would have to do the curriculum by when?
Greg is gonna have to have it ready for the end of January, well, as much as he can at the end of January,
Because it
to be
starts,
ready to
what,
talk. to
January
start teaching.
31st?
Yeah. Is that the second
February
semester?
2nd, whatever, yes, whatever
Okay.
Just a thought on this, to address these indigenous people displaying culture and artifacts in the school. Would you give some consideration to move that display that's currently tucked away in the middle school library where nobody would see it? So that we can maybe get it into our lobby area, so it can be shared with the public when they come in?
Yeah, we have that, and we also have a ribbon shirt that we were given 3 years ago now that we've been looking for a place to put it. So now we'll have more stuff to put in a decent display. Yes.
Anything else? Thank you, Terry. Okay, so moving on to program matters. So I can have a motion to consent for A1, B1, A, B, C, D, 2A, B, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, B, 7, 8A, B, C, D. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Are the volunteer coaches, I know we've asked before, are they still getting background checked if they don't work for the building? I know we had talked about that,
Yes.
so any of them.
Let me just double check tomorrow.
So any of them before Monday, when they would be working with the kids, would be background checked so that we would know that they were safe to be working with our students. Some of them work here, so obviously I don't think those, because they're already, yeah, they've already been through it. But the ones that don't work, same with the coaches, all of the coaches that have been background checked as well as the volunteers?
I have them.
But,
I have them.
oh, of course, you have been fingerprinted in the state though, so.
Better be delegated to the new athletic director.
It will be, yes.
To make sure that they're all.
Okay, and first aid CPR.
Thank you. Thank you. I also have a question. For programmatic, for the district-wide safety plan, we had so much talk about masks tonight. It's not this. Okay. So I just
This is
wanna
like
make sure. Okay.
tornadoes,
I just want to,
evacuation plans, yes. The traditional.
okay, thank you.
And can we just be clear that number 4A, the appointment there for interim is interim middle school principal as discussed just a little bit ago? Okay.
We're putting interim middle
Well,
school.
it's not just a random administrator who's going to be in charge of the middle.
No, that's what I'm
school.
asking,
Right.
because I'm writing it on my notes. So it's gonna be interim middle school principal.
Are you make your changes and then the white safety?
Confined to me, it's the language that's nothing to do with it. I think during last year, during the pandemic, we had the past pandemic language, so that's included in the employee list.
So do we have an answer completely to Tara's question? With the, yes, before beginning. Are we going to approve them tonight without that? I don't.
The approval is pending, like, or they're approved.
Pending
Pending.
the background check?
Yes, well, yeah, so
Okay.
pending first date, you know, like
Okay.
they say they're just gonna take it on Saturday, Thursday, CPR.
Okay,
So by next meeting, we should have a list of all the coaches, with whether they, like we had before. Updated. Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Motion consent to C 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Second.
Any discussion? All in
Wait a
favor?
minute.
Aye.
I'm just trying to read. So we're trying to buy out Ryan's vacation? Is that what this read? How does it read?
I had a question about that because we did let him go, like, without his 30 days notice. Are we still obligated to do that?
We actually lost because of that. You lost dates because of it. By letting them go early, we're not paying them out as many days.
You're
Okay,
thinking, do we have to do it at all?
right.
Because we did let him out.
I mean, he kind of left us in the lurch this summer, so.
And hold on that, and just. So we feel. till we find out and make a decision? So that would be which,
3.
3, okay, all those numbers but 3. Any other discussion?
How many days was it?
We'll talk in executive session. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Is there anyone else who would like to say anything tonight?
I have one more question. I'm sorry, just because we're sitting here listening, and talking about this. So I guess my question is, just even this past year, I don't know if anybody else recognized it or not, but there's been a lot of high turnover between teachers and staff just in this past year. Can you give us an answer as to why that is?
Yeah, well,
We have high retirements. I know that.
It wasn't just retirements. It was people just giving, I read the stuff, I keep up on it. Like I said, I don't have much to say. But all this going on, like, prompted me. I want to know, I just, it's not just that it's a few, it's quite a few.
We can take a look at that and see the numbers and how it compares, there's gonna be turnover, but is it like exceptional? And what the
To
reasons
me,
are?
it is.
Well,
To
that's
me,
what-
it is exceptional.
We could take a look at that, yeah, exceptional in terms of.
As a business person, I look at that stuff.
Yeah,
as
because it costs money.
turnover. And yes, it does cost a lot of money for training. And
Exactly.
obviously, you never know if that person's gonna be a good fit for the district and how they're gonna, so that, I feel that is a valid question.
It is, yeah.
I've seen a lot of it just in this past year, just over the past couple of months. So that's why I was asking the question.
So Mike, maybe for the next meeting, maybe an agenda item would be to discuss exit interviews.
Sure, because I was just trying to think how we want to make sure that you get your answer. Not that you have to come, but I have your name,
Okay.
so we'll.
Yeah, feel free to
We'll
call
figure
me,
something
email
out.
me.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, but please come. And
I'll try my
if you
best.
can, I know it's, we don't usually go this late, but that's okay. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Gary, this is for you. That community base, so with the preschool, the community based situation is when there's too many kids. They need to have them go to a community base.
We just have to give them, you have to find a community-based organization that meets eligibility requirements and find an agreement between yourself and them for 10% of your total allotted money. So in certain cases, what districts have done is they do what they call, give them the overflow students. So if their in-house program can only hold 18, and they have 23 kids apply, they'll send the extra students over to the community-based organization. In other scenarios, that's one RFP that we wrote. In other scenarios, the community-based organization comes right on campus and takes a space on campus of 2 or 3 or 4, however many pre-K programs a particular district has. They're housed on site so the kids and the teachers can all work together. So that's an option membership.
So is there a possibility that an existing preschool could be that community based? An existing one in our.
Yes, as long as they meet the eligibility requirements, yes. Which just means they have to be licensed or certified by the New York State Youth Pre-K provider. Other than that, yes.
And I don't know, another question, it's not really a question, but I see that the Y is often before and after school, trying to get those numbers up. I don't know if I should say this, but so is Tracy. I don't know if you're aware of that. She's been telling people that she's also offering before and after. And I believe the school district will be picking up this kids from there and transporting. Or maybe she's doing something private, I don't know. That is another option. I know that people were really looking for some kind of before and after school care for their kids, and now we have a possibility of who coming into play here.
Carrie, I have one more question. Now that Mrs. Donahue is brought something up, is our 10% 12,000 or 6,000?
It's whatever your allotment is for that year. So the
So it's gonna be
second half of this
12,000.
year, it will only be 6,000.
So
So
it's
we're only getting 60
Okay.
for this year. But going forward, if we're accessing 120, let's just say hypothetically, we don't have enough kids to access all 120 and we're accessing less, it's just 10% of whatever it is we're accessing.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't want that 60,000 then to become 48. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Round the table.
Mm.
Contribute anything? Jamie?
I love to hear our parents come and speak to us because honestly, my children have graduated, but I still deeply love this school. So I love to hear when parents come in and tell us how they truly feel about how well or how poorly we're doing. So thank you. Please continue to come. Give us pros and cons. Thank you.
Yes, it was very nice to see so many community members here tonight. That was very, very, very nice, and hear their input on so many different topics.
I think I'm looking forward to Monday. Sports starts. It kind of kicks off unofficially our new school year, and we'll see where this year takes us. Bringing kids back.
On 2 levels, I agree with both. Like, I'm very thankful for all the people that are brave enough to come and talk to us because we do listen. And I'm hopeful that we can come to some sort of agreement and compromise that we can make as many people as possible happy and keep kids safe. And I'm very excited about sports starting because it's sort of normal. I think the kids need something normal.
Okay, I want to say, I do trust the administration. They have to represent everyone in the school, all 1,300 kids, and they have to make decisions that they feel is in their best interest. That being said, though, I really do appreciate the public input and when people actually come and tell us stuff, because then that forces us to relook and re-examine their decisions and make a compromise or just work something out that can be the best for everyone, because we do represent 1,300 kids, and that's a lot. So really, thanks for coming. I do like to hear it.
I had a quick note. My daughter was at kinder camp this week and absolutely loved it, and I'm very excited to start kindergarten soon. So thank you guys for offering that. She raved about the teachers and everybody she met. So thank you.
I want to piggyback on Maureen. I agree with Maureen that we love to have the public come because they have great ideas to give the board that we should consider moving forward. My second thing is I'd like to give a big shout out to our custodial staff. I think they continue to find out being in school, among the construction that's going on, as well as cleaning up our outside grounds with the storm that we had this summer. And I know that was a major cleanup, so I want to thank them for your dedicated professional job that they're doing.
I just want to say that I look forward to the start of school, having all the kids back in here the best that we can. And just getting, I know my daughter misses seeing friends and seeing her classmates, so it'll be great to be back in and just have her in school learning.
I want to thank those that worked this summer and made it a success. We had over 200 kids here, Jim, maybe?
180.
100, yeah.
And then the rec program.
Yes, the rec program, that is.
Yeah. Certainly Kyle's daughter enjoyed it. Her time here, looking forward to kindergarten, and my granddaughter's looking forward to first grade. So a lot of kids looking forward, and parents looking forward to a nice beginning, and we'll try to do our best to work through all these issues. And I do want to thank you guys for hanging out to the last minute. There should be a medal, or somebody's going to cook dinner for us. I don't know if I. Oh, that's It's not too late. Stewart.
I wrote that down.
Give you our orders. But thank you, and I think we do want to hear. We do want to hear from you and share stuff, and we'll try to work and figure stuff out. And it's not gonna, we're not gonna please everybody, but we're gonna, you always know it's from a good spot for all of us. We're coming to this from a good, the pay's lousy. It's funny when you hear about the board members are gonna lose their money maybe someplace, and it's not happening here because there isn't, but the thing. So we have, our future meetings, the Board of Education meetings as a board retreat with the administration, August 25th at 5:30 in the high school library. A regular Board of Education meeting, September 16th at 6:30 in the high school library, and a presentation meeting on October 7th in the high school library. Now I need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of approving special ed minutes and personnel discussions.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. So thank you, everybody.